All right, all right, all right. It's another Saturday night. Therefore, another Saturday night shoot the breeze. I see Oni's out there already in the chat. It's like 3 a.m. where he is, so I appreciate him even stopping through. He says internet's not good enough for panel. I understand, brother. I get it. Don't stress it. I know you gotta save your bandwidth, especially for your show and stuff like that. So that's cool. If you guys are hearing my voice, I think you are. Just drop a 1 for me. Jonella's out there. Joe is out there saying good evening. So good evening to Joe as well. Thank you all for coming through so far. Tonight we are discussing. We have 5 topics that are possible. We'll see how it goes. One of the topics we're discussing tonight is the Caribbean too dependent on tourism. You guys know my thoughts on that. Especially where I'm from, I think it is. We're going to talk about the Caribbean government's position on reparations. We're going to talk about Ghana's position on reparations. We're going to try to tackle this question: if Black people use white supremacist labels, why can't white people practice African spirituality? Interesting. Here's this other topic on African spirituality. It says African spirituality is not googlygook, the scientific inferences of African spiritual thought, long before Europeans understood these ideas. The possible topic is about divesting. Imagine doing all this divesting and the white man still doesn't choose you. That's a funny topic there too. By the way, you guys can join the Discord. The link is down in the description. Join the Discord, and you can post your topics on the Discord under the Shoot the Breeze channel. You can post your topics that you would like to hear discussed and pin to the top of the chat. I see a couple of ones coming in. Pin to the top of the chat. There's the link for the panel. You can always join the panel tonight. And I also have a link up there to subscribe to the Shoot the Breeze Clips YouTube channel, which is doing nicely these last couple of days. I've been putting up a lot of clips up there. So make sure you're subscribed to that as well. I'm going to try to do some new and interesting things on that side too. So let's wait for it. Daily Affirmation by Pauline is here. Yana B is here. I appreciate all of you. What we're going to do now is start the show. I'll go at least, have the show intro. And on the other side, I'll drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight. So do stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the revolutionary matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
All right. I see the matron has joined us in the chat. She says, greetings, everyone. Greetings to the matron. A shout out, Yana B. I see KW Don 7 joined us. Thank you all for being here tonight. I hope it's a good show. Hope you guys appreciate the discussions that are coming forward tonight. I have one panelist join me so far. That's Buana. Buana, how are you this week?
I'm good, brother. How you doing, Koku?
I'm hanging in there, bro.
Good,
how's
good,
everything?
Good. Kind of quiet. You know, it's the weather is changing. You know, it looks like it's gonna be kind of like a cool winter. So, you know, everything is okay down there. Though things are very quiet right now. So.
Well, quiet is good sometimes, so that's good.
Quiet is good.
Again, if you guys want to join the panel tonight, click the link at the top of the chat, and you'll be entered on the panel. I guess without further ado, since it's me and Buana, I'll drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight, something that we're familiar with. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight is the Caribbean too dependent on tourism. Like I said, you guys know my take on that already. But this came with a link, of course, that takes us to X, formerly known as Twitter. AJ Plus tweets out, you know who can't access Jamaica's white sand beaches? Jamaica. This came with a 2.5-minute video. I'll play it twice if necessary. If not, I'll just play it once. But let's check it out, then we'll talk about it.
You know who can't access Jamaica's white sand beaches? Jamaicans. According to a local advocacy group's calculations, less than 1% of Jamaica's coastline is accessible to the public.
Jamaicans have nowhere for themselves. We are living in between waters and we have no access to a beach.
Norris Arscott has been fishing at his local beach for most of his life. But a company bought the land in front of the beach and built a cement wall around the property. The plan? To build another resort.
Me personally have no access to another beach. So we had no choice than to go where they push us. Me been occupying that beach for 70 years. Those beaches was like our playground.
There are approximately 74 public beaches on the island, but many of them are in disrepair, charge daily use fees, or are difficult to access without a vehicle. So now, Norris has to bike 10 kilometers every morning along a busy highway to get to the closest beach where he can fish.
I earn more money if I was fishing here. But what happened, I had to be going and coming to and from St. Lawrence Bay to here to make $1. It's a far, tall journey to do from here at 70 years of age. They are pushing us back. This colonial system is coming right back at us.
He sometimes only makes around $25 selling fish. In comparison, the 2 all-inclusive resorts nearby can cost hundreds of dollars per person per night. Damien Combs lives down the road from Norris. He says his neighbors are also suffering from the lack of income after the beach closure.
So we're looking here at jet skis which have been parked, so to speak. Some of them are broken, some of them have damaged engines. They would sell rides to tourists or sell rides to locals. Jet skis put food on the table.
The Caribbean is the most tourism-dependent region in the world. But according to the UN, approximately 80% of all tourism dollars spent in the Caribbean end up leaving the region.
The thing that the government will tell you, and these hotels, that they create jobs. They create jobs, but what kind of jobs? So you're actually working in a hotel, which you will never ever be able to afford. You have all your independent people that did their own independent work and created their jobs that have lost those jobs. The people that sell t-shirts, they're the fisher folk. Beach closing basically canceled all those jobs.
Yeah, I think I'll just play it the one time. I think everyone could pick up on it. Yana B said, wow. Yana B, that's your hometown, right? Anthony McPhail. You know, I think I saw Anthony McPhail on the 4Kast the other day. I have forgotten who Anthony McPhail was. Peace to you. Peace and blessings to the panel and chat. He says, Ketta's out there. He says, peace, family. RBG, Real Black Gentleman, says, greetings and graces, peoples. Appreciate all of you for tuning in tonight. All right, so I guess Buana and I have a little idea what's going on here. Buana, what say you to what you just saw?
Koku, the issue is nuanced, okay? Because you know it as well as I do that nothing happens in the Caribbean without the approval of the Caribbean governments that are in place and also the people. It ain't just the so-called white man coming in and buying property and land and excluding the local population from enjoying the beaches, the public beaches that exist. It's also the people and the governments who these people put in place and empower as well. Okay, and know what I mean by that. You know, no private industry, no foreign entity or element could ever come into a so-called independent country and start doing things without the agreement of the government. The government has to sign off on the contract. The government, if there is a contract that suggests that we would like this exclusive plot of land and a right to use this plot of land exclusively, and they sign, and a government official, whether it be prime minister or politician, signs off on that, that means that he is given these foreign elements and entities the right to exclusively use this property. And you see the older people talking, you see them talking with this outrage, what I consider to be selective outrage. These are the same people who would put these kinds of men in power electoral year after year after year. So now everybody upset now when these colonial governments do what they do and what they've been doing. Everybody's upset. But these are the same elderly people who will swear and die off of some of these politicians. They'll swear for and die for these guys. They'll continuously put them in office, and they're gonna do what they continually been doing. That's one side of it. Another thing too is Jamaica, Cuba, to some extent the Bahamas and a lot of these Caribbean countries. When people get upset enough, they will lash out and protest against their government. Where's the outcry? They tried to do the same thing in the Bahamas, where you had exclusive use of some hotels, exclusive use for some private hotels, where they were prohibiting the Bahamian public from using certain property. What did the people do? The people protested it. The people came out and drove and protested it. In fact, the one of the prime ministers at the time, who wasn't in office, was at the center of protesting, prohibiting the local use of these private beaches and entities. And then when he got in office, he continued the same practice. So it just becomes like a ridiculous back and forth kind of thing. But I believe that when people get angry enough, they'll stop certain things from happening within their country. If the people come together and say enough is enough, then certain things will stop happening in their country. It's just as simple as that. But if you go for the so-called proverbial buys, if you go for the little shortfalls, the little television that a politician gonna buy you, some marijuana, some Kentucky Fried Chicken, some woman, some prostitutes, if you willing to go for that, then they're gonna continue to do the things that colonial governments do, and you will continue to have no say in your own country. As far as being dependent on tourism, that's an arguable comment, because I think that a lot of these colonial territories are what I consider the type of tourism that is currently practiced in the Caribbean is a plantation economy, plantation style economy. And I think that that type of tourism we need to break away from, and we need to have a different kind of tourism. Whereas the tourism have to be localized. You know, the local people have to be in charge of the tourism from top to bottom. It can't be an outside entity coming in trying to impose this idea of what Jamaica is supposed to be, this yeah man-ism, or what the Bahamas is, with the girl with a nice flower in her hair and shit like that. not most Bahamian women don't have flowers in their hair. You know, come on. I think that the local population, if we was to define the tourism or define the relationship of how that tourism is structured, I think that I could agree with that kind of tourism because it's an industry. It's an undeniable economic powerhouse to some Caribbean islands. But you have other things that exist in the Caribbean, like Jamaica has their marijuana industry, which is a huge industry. They have aluminum. They have bauxite. They have we have bananas. We have the agricultural industry. We have fishing and things like that. I think that there are other industries we could focus on, but I think that tourism shouldn't be discounted because it's $1 billion industry. As is practiced in the Caribbean, I think that we need to get away from that plantation style economy in terms of how we practice tourism currently. But that's what I would say to this particular point.
You know, Bwana, I agree with you. Of course, I agree with the things that you're saying because we come from this type of calamity that we're watching on the screen. And I remember that hotel thing, which is wild because our hotel is right in the heart of where, you know, tourism and stuff happens in Nassau, and you couldn't go to that beach at all because of our hotel. But I'll say this, you know, to answer the prompt, is the Caribbean too dependent on tourism? I would say absolutely. I think the problem is the people, as Bwana and others in the chat, and I'll be reading your comments in a second. The people get caught up. I think Keta said it really well, actually. Let me see if I can find that. He said the Caribbean is still a huge colony. Our populations are plagued with ignorance, superstition, political tribalism based on religion. And that's the part I was going to talk about. The problem with a lot of these folks is once these PMs and MPs of the areas come through and start talking that Christianity stuff, all y'all fellas out there, and men and women and children, will be out there rallying and chanting behind this MP, looking to get your votes to represent that area that they don't even care about, right? To vote in the PM, the prime minister, who don't even check for y'all in terms of their policies and whatnot. And then y'all gonna want to come and complain, and that's my problem. You see, if you had the right leadership in there, first let's go back for a second before the right leadership. To define the right leadership, if y'all let some of the youth who go away and get a wider worldview perspective and you know, etc., come back with the ideas to really make change. If y'all allow some of them folks to come in, things could be better. But y'all don't. In fact, a lot of the youth, in fact, the Caribbean is one of the highest places for brain drain. A lot of people don't return because what you going back and do, right, is the old heads, them man and them who was around since the country's got independence, who's still kicking around inside these governments, making these little deals into perpetuity. That's where I first learned that term. Well, one of these perpetuity, Bwana. That's why I learned that word. It's from home. Them man and them could buy property forever and have that property forever, and you can't touch that beach or nothing. You know what I mean? But to touch on the folks here, I agree with what y'all saying about the people, but I'll say this though, in fairness, I don't think the average person would think that way. I don't think the average person would think, I need to buy this beach. I need to buy this beach because the government may come and sell out the beach and they put a wall around this beach and I can't access this beach though. I think we got to be a little bit fair to the people in that I don't think the average person, especially in years long ago, I don't think the average person would think about that kind of thing. Now that we have the examples of it, I think people need to get on the ball and start protecting these things. But I don't think that's what people used to think back in the day. In fact, we know this is true of African folks in general. We didn't think about land ownership as heavy as these other folks did. So I'll give them a little bit of grace on that. This man who's talking about that beach was their playground and stuff, this man never thought the Jamaican government will sell this land or what have you to inconvenience himself and the people. I can't see that they would have thought otherwise, if I'm being honest. Being a person from the Caribbean, I don't think they would have necessarily thought otherwise. The grassroots people ain't gonna think otherwise. But last thing I'll say, Abuana, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish. I want you to finish first.
Yeah, the last thing I'll talk about, what Buana mentioned, was the plantation tourism. That's a huge problem. That's always been a problem. I told you all a story. I had an uncle in his youth in Nassau. They used to get little black fellas and stuff to walk behind these white women with their shopping bags, and my uncle was doing it to make some money. And one of his friends saw him and told him, hey, don't do that. That ain't looking good. Don't do that, man. Walking behind a white woman carrying her bags and all that, don't do that. So yeah, we got to get off of that. I will say, I also think this is where the old heads in government and stuff are messing up. Take the money from tourism and invest it back into the country. Invest it in the agriculture. If you're Jamaica, where bauxite is invested into bauxite, so y'all could be making your version of Reynolds Wrap instead of Reynolds Wrap owning your bauxite, right? But this is not what's happening, and I think you have a chance to change this if you could get the younger folks like Buana and them who went off and saw the world and saw how some things go and have some understanding to come back to the country and take those positions that will forward the country. I think that's what you have to do. Buana, you want to add something, and then I'll introduce
For me personally, Koku, that time has passed. You know, with this information age, I believe in the whole idea of borderlessisms. The time in terms of being nationalistic in these small little colonial islands, former colonial islands, I am way past that. I am way past 21/7. I believe in being a global citizen of the world and going where I need to go get it. Granted, the Bahamas could be my home base. I have no problem with it. But the mentality is so embedded into the minds of people. It's very difficult for these people to break free of it. What is break my heart, Koku? People, there are brilliant young people in the Caribbean. I'm talking about A-class brilliance, and I've seen it over and over again. And when they reach a certain age, the story is so familiar. They go to a place that is able to appreciate their talents and their gifts, things that they can bring to the table. And unfortunately, the Bahamas and places like the Bahamas could be the Monaco of the Black world. They could be the Switzerland. You know, you have a small segment of European countries, Norway, Switzerland. They do things in a particular way that is beneficial to their little white little enclaves. The Caribbean can do the same kinds of things. And if you claim that you are independent countries, why do you have to continue to go and formulate your practices and your cultures with the so-called former colonial mother countries? Why don't you break away from that and find and create something that is distinctly unique, something that is workable, something that is far different? This is what Lee Kuan Yew them do. You know what I mean? It's like, why do we have to continue to follow the former colonial countries? Because these things are going to eventually end us into a cul-de-sac. Why do we go that way? But I feel if leadership is going to continually do that, some of the leadership, not all, because this is why I have my eyes on Mia Motley in Barbados. But if these guys are going to continue in this form and fashion, then the young people are going to look at that and say, man, this is a no-way situation for me. I can't think along the lines of these restricted policies of plantation politics. Fuck that. I mean, I live in a world and I can think as a global citizen, just like all these other little multi-billionaires running around the world. I am not a second-class citizen in this world. I'm going to be a first-class citizen in this world. And a lot of young Black intelligent people have gotten that. And they say, well, we live here. This is our home base, but we could go anywhere in the world and operate. You know, so I'll leave it there because this is another kind of discussion. I'll leave it there.
I feel you 100%, Juan. I feel you 100%. In the chat, Kenneth said the Caribbean has a small educated elite. Most of our leaders were educated in Western institutions coming back to oppress us. Absolutely. Daily Affirmation by Pauline, also from the hometown. She says, most people want the beach to be public. I don't believe anyone thought this would occur. Yeah, I don't if I'm being honest, going back in my thoughts growing up, ain't no one was thinking about no Sanders Beach would have been sold and all, and that. Nah, no one was really thinking that. You know, Trigger Happy 262 Plus says they probably don't have the money either. That's another thing. It will take obviously organization and political parties to get ownership and political ownership for the people. Yana B disagrees. She says, nah, the average person, if you're a fisherman, then you do what you need to do. That's business, how you make your money. Yeah, again, to buy a beach is no simple feat. I get the sentiment, but it's no simple feat. Ketter also says we need to start a grassroots organization, but most of the population is politically uneducated. Trigger Happy says, yep, investment implies some sort of orientation or ideology. Their ideology is oriented to the West. Lastly, Ketter says the money from tourism leaves the region because the hotels don't belong to the state or country. And that's a great point as well. Let's welcome our boy Black Steel this week. Black Steel, how are you? Black Steel, are you hearing me? All right, let's welcome in our other boy, Real Black Gentleman. Real Black Gentleman.
Oh, what's up?
Good.
Is there a echo? Are you hearing an echo? Or does it sound good?
There was, but it's good. Go ahead.
Okay. I guess, you know, with the Caribbean, I guess it kind of goes back to I mean, a sense of organization. I mean, the Caribbean is naturally diverse in a way that is not necessarily it doesn't necessarily benefit, you know what I'm saying, Black people or necessarily anyone necessarily in the Caribbean as it stands because of the latent colonialism and the various entrenched powers that are in there keep everything separated. The answer to the question, is it too dependent on tourism? I don't know. I mean, I don't think it really has a chance. Yes, it definitely is. Who did was it Juana who said, you know, the Caribbean needs to have some kind of financial capital, some kind of like investment, you know, zone. That would be great. And I think that in all reality, it would be in its central location, at least in the Western Hemisphere, it would be the ideal place to do those things. But the problem is, the people who are already kind of in place to do that, who are the heavy investors, going back, you know what I'm saying, going back to the other week with the Epstein, the rich white folks in the internet doing all that. That's investing. The problem is, it's like we don't. I mean, it's difficult in as a Black man in America to look at the Caribbean in know how to really go in there. I mean, if Black people, I mean, heaven forbid, but I mean, just feel me out. The way that, you know, Black Americans went up in Liberia and basically took it over, you know, to the angst of the people there. I mean, I don't want to say take over, but look at the Caribbean as a kind of, you know, to invest and to build up stuff, you know, to have capital, to be the financiers. I mean, I mean, relatively, if you have a $1 million, you know, liquid that you are able to invest, you know, proper investments, that $1 million could bubble up, you know, within a relatively short time span, within 10 years, you know, 20 years, that $1 million could easily become 10 million in a strong business. And a fair amount of people have $1 million. I mean, not, you know, a fair amount, not, you know, not hundreds of millions of people, not tens of, you know what I'm saying? 100,000 people have $1 million liquid. 100,000 Black people have $1 million liquid. It's just a matter of, you know, getting them to not see, oh, let's go to the Bahamas and play on the sand. No, let's go to the Bahamas and set up this network that's going to, like, you know, connect with, you know what I'm saying? Things, there are always opportunities, but then once again, you do have people's, you know, who are nationals in their own regions who would then reject that kind of, you know, or try to exploit it, or try to like take the investment and then try to, you know, just commandeer the money. And then what will they do with the money? Spend it in France, spend it in London, spend it in Milan. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's very difficult about, you know, how do you, you know, get there from here? How do you coalesce at least each various, nation, and to try to invest and to draw I mean, clearly if Haiti, I don't know how Kenya found itself in Haiti. I mean, I got to give them major props for that. Although I would expect someone like Ghana would have done that first, being a little bit closer. Because I mean, the gas and the fuel to move a lot of people from Kenya to Haiti can't be cheap. You know what I'm saying? Every 1,000 miles you could cut off, if you could send some Africans from, the West Coast instead of the East Coast. But, I got to give Kenya credit for, stepping up. I mean, that's a major move. That's similar to how Cuba, moved in and helped with the Namibians. You know what I'm saying? Free peoples down there. So I see that. You can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Naturally, everyone destabilizes the Haitian people. So at least black people are there, and hopefully it's the Haitian people see them as neutral, disinterested relatively in the processes of the country, just to be neutral arbiters and peacekeepers, true peacekeepers to the best of their abilities. It really shouldn't. I mean, if as long as you have corrupt black people who want to spend the people's money and basically give it to white folks, this will never fail. And as long as, once again, it goes back to the internal things of black people not seeing other black nations as like party stops, and actually like, how can I put my money here in a way that the money is a true investment, that money is fixed with a purpose for industry. I'm gonna pass the mic.
I appreciate that, RBG. I'll be honest. I'm a little bit skeptical of why Kenya, of all the African nations on the west, why Kenya from the east. I'm skeptical about that. Kenya says America's the only hegemon in the region. Kenya isn't stepping up. America is allowing this. He says no foreign forces could move about in the entire Western Hemisphere without the agreement of the U.S. and Kenya. Ruto and Kenya are shit, is what he says. Erzuli was in the chat. He said blacks are washed. They ain't investing in shit. Thanks to Erzuli. Lero is here as well. Erzuli is here. Black Steel is here. And with that said, let's hear from Black Steel. Black Steel, what's say?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the chat. Glad to be here. Sorry I'm running a little late.
It's all right.
Black Steel.
Hey, how you doing? I know Razuli doesn't want to say Black Steel, but I got to keep my secret identity, man. Chill out. Anyways, to the prompt. So yeah, this is something I just posted. I wanted to ask a question because I don't live in the Caribbean, but I do understand how areas and neighborhoods get gentrified, right? So I see this as a larger theme of trying to displace African people. Sort of like what's going on with the Gullah Geechee in the Carolinas. A lot of their homes are getting bought up and turned into resorts, like, for example, in South Carolina and Georgia. But the area is kind of dependent on tourism because, in a way, it's forced to depend on tourism. Its industrial capacity has never really been developed because it benefits the U.S. hegemon to keep these countries dependent on them, to depend on foreign aid. And when we see they start to step out of line, you get a Cuba, you get a Haiti, you get a Grenada, you get a situation like that. So I think they're dependent on tourism, but only because they haven't really had opportunity to develop their industries the way they should have. I don't think that there's enough wealthy people. Like, I don't think this old man could ever accumulate enough wealth to buy, a beach, no matter how much fishing he did. So I think that those resources should be held for the people. Enough about private ownership. Why is it that these resources cannot be held in common for the people of this country? Since they live there, they're the ones who make the country livable. So I'll leave it there. Koku, thanks for having me, and I'll see. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to answer Black Steel. What I would do in the Caribbean, it seems that the commercialized tourism that exists in the Caribbean islands I would really try to get away from that. I know it's probably too far gone now, but I would try to see. Well, Airbnb has done something good for the Caribbean. Airbnb has made the classical tourists who would usually go to these all-inclusive hotels to come out of these places and have a localized experiences, because now you're renting out the local homes to stay in. So you have a sense of, you get to understand what the community is like. You get to understand what the community eats. You get to have a closer relationship outside of that so-called tourism kind of commercialized experience. You get a more localized interaction with the regular tourist. So you see them almost on a human level as opposed to a master servant level. So I think that Airbnb is a good feature in terms of what that has done for people entertaining foreign and guests in their own homes and places like that. Also, there is something like the marijuana industry. The marijuana industry is something I believe that is a serviceable industry to the so-called tourism economy. Why? Because many guests come here, they want that experience of leisure. Many of them, the first thing they ask you for is some dope. They'll ask the Jamaican, oh, show me where Bob Marley is. Let me get some of the good ganja? If the Jamaicans find themselves at the helm of that industry, I think that they will be able to galvanize more dollars in their economy, as opposed to just tourism dollars. Now, some people will say, look at that and say, have a moral view. Say, well, you can't give the guests the guests been smoking drugs. They've been smoking drugs long before we got here. And in fact, in American states now, they are decriminalizing the usage of marijuana. So what goes for the United States or the Americas goes for the rest of the Caribbean. The good thing about it is now you have poor farmers who could benefit from that, because you have millions of tourists coming to the Caribbean every year. They want to relax on the beach. Many of them want to smoke a good whatever. And now they have to pay for it. And the money, the dollars are being put back into these farmers' pockets. I don't think it's a bad thing. Some people have a moralistic view to it. I don't. Just like cigarette is a multi-billion-dollar industry, I think that the marijuana leaf could be also a multi-billion-dollar industry, not only for the purposes of leisure, but even on a medicinal level. These kinds of things should be introduced to the regular. Man, listen, man, we could go on forever. I'll just cut it there. I'll cut it there and just.
Not just that, you could use it industrially. You could use it in hemp, in concrete, hempcrete, and construction materials and stuff like that too. So yeah, we need to get on that. By the way, we had Airbnb longer than America. We used to call it guest house back in the day. But yeah, Razuli them are talking about Kenya. Razuli says Kenya ain't shit. Yana B says we need to do better. Razuli says they didn't show up when the Dominicans was killing the Haitians, but want to show up now under false pretenses. Yana B agrees with Buena, legalize the herb. Keto says marijuana should be legalized and industrialized in the Caribbean. I agree. All good facts. All good points. Is there any other last points anyone here wants to make? And by the way, shout out to the forecast who's in the chat as well tonight. If I missed anyone, just drop a comment. I'll shout you out too. It seems like there's no last comments here, so let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 tonight. Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 tonight says the Caribbean government's position on reparations. This came with a link to YouTube. So we'll watch the video and then we'll comment.
Well, joining us now is the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, who says that to make amends, Britain must pay reparations to Caribbean countries affected by the slave trade. Good to have you with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So that is your position, is it? That money needs to be paid. What sort of sums are you thinking of?
This is not a simple discussion as to what sort of sums. We've been arguing this for over 20 years. And the CARICOM Reparatory Commission has basically set out a 10-point plan of the different things that they believe need to be done, starting, of course, with an apology, but also dealing with things such as the psychological rehabilitation as a result of the trauma, dealing with assistance and remedying the public health crisis. Most people don't even recall that the diets of slaves were heavily salted, and in many instances have led to the kind of intergenerational hypertension and diabetes and chronic non-communicable diseases that we see. And then in respect of the debt, Caribbean governments at the point of independence, there was no development compact to say, look, this is what you need to go forward. But what they did was to try to reverse the negative aspects of colonialism, which meant dealing with housing, which meant dealing with right to education, right to healthcare, all of the basic things that normal governments would want to see as part, in fact, of the Sustainable Development Goals today that the United Nations has set up. Now, I said to you that this was started about 20 years ago, largely because in December 2000, I was then Minister of Culture and Education. I would have been the one leading the Barbados delegation to the UN World Conference Against Racism, Xenophobia, and Racial Discrimination. And that was one of the preparatory conferences that took place before we went to Durban in September 2001 for the World Conference. In between there, we would have had a number of meetings in Geneva across the world. In fact, I remember it well because it was the same week that the German government agreed to give compensation to those who were affected by the awful Holocaust of World War II. So that this is not a new concept. What I want to say, and I think Prince Harry captured it, there has to be a conversation. It can't be reduced to a headline. It can't be reduced to sensationalizing. And to that extent, therefore, we expect that the conversation, difficult as it may be, is absolutely necessary. The English-speaking Caribbean is perhaps one of the most highly indebted regions in the entire world, with debt-to-GDP ratios way above many other countries. And of course, now that we've gone into the COVID pandemic, it's become exceptionally difficult for a lot of these countries to be able to raise money on their own because of the high debt burden that they carry, not because of any wickedness, but already because they want to be able to put in place a development compact for their people that was not given to their people prior to independence, and the resources were not left for us to do so in a way that the compensation took place at emancipation.
So this,
and you're a member.
This conversation, as you say, or this was initially brought up about 20 years ago. We know that Tony Blair, when he was Prime Minister in 2007, did publicly apologise, didn't he? He apologised for Britain's role in the transatlantic slave trade, and that you know, that's 13 years ago now. Do you feel like, even though we're having this conversation today, that actually the conversation and the tone and what's being talked about has shifted at all in that time, or do you still feel like 20 years ago when this was started, you haven't got anywhere? Because you're talking about an apology, and clearly Tony Blair has made an apology.
And I believe others across the world have apologized, but that's the first step.
Yeah.
I think we need to be able to understand that the underdevelopment of Africa, the underdevelopment of the Caribbean, the underdevelopment of Latin America, in many instances is a child of the colonial experiment. And the colonial experiment extracted wealth. And in some of these countries, the extractive attitudes still remain such that we've not been able to build the kind of domestic enterprises and the domestic foundation that's necessary to sustain our people. And the biggest problem, more often than not, is mental too. We've removed the legal vestiges to discrimination in many instances, but it is the mental emancipation. Bob Marley popularized the words of Marcus Garvey. It is the mental emancipation. It's the use of things like blacklisting of Caribbean countries, or it's the use of and other countries for tax or other purposes. It's the use of this kind of language that associates negative with black and positive with white. And then when you start to look at the difficulties in the United States of America with respect to policing and access into basic services, or what it takes to have persons struck from voters' lists, all of these are things that deprive ordinary people from the promise of development. That should be all of ours. And I think that we have a set of people across the world now with a level of consciousness particularly young people who are recognizing that this existential threat called the climate crisis is causing us to really understand where we stand. And as if that were not enough, then comes the pandemic that teaches us the worth of jobs, the worth of family, the worth of the environment, the worth of everything around us. And it's a resetting that perhaps we couldn't time the two. And that resetting, I think, has given us the sensitivity that, you know, maybe we need to have this discussion. Now people talk much easier today about mental health.
Well, you make a very, very passionate case. You mentioned the pandemic a couple of times. A neighbour of mine actually found themselves trapped in Barbados when things went into lockdown. We all were rather jealous until we realised how challenging it's been for you, because it seems like a wonderful place to be in lockdown. But it's been very challenging, although very successful, hasn't it? Your cases have been much lower than other parts of the world.
You know, we've been lucky in the Caribbean for the most part. And we were able to take actions early on. Our populations have been very, very supportive and very cooperative, and we've been able to contain it. And
What
and
do
we've
you make
had
of what we've done here in Britain? Sorry to interrupt you. Do you think we've been quite slow here in the UK?
I haven't been following that closely to be able to pass those judgments. But what I do know is that this is one of the most challenging things that any country is going to have to manage. And the larger the country, the more complex the combinations and permutations are to be able to contain movement. So I don't think that you can make a simple judgment on it. We're accustomed to a Western approach with respect to freedom of movement, freedom of association, and all of a sudden, from nowhere, you now have to contain people's movements and to ask people to do everything differently in order to be able to protect themselves. Stay away from families, stay away from young ones, stay away from old ones. All of these things are disruptive. But it has taught us, as I said, to appreciate. I'm told that you had a very difficult experience, and I want to wish your husband all the best in his recovery.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
Mia Motley, we can hear the crickets in the background chirping away. It's the sound that I adore when I've been lucky enough to visit the Caribbean. It reminds us of those beautiful beaches and the wonderful warm welcome you get from the locals. And I know that you're offering people, you'd like to offer people who maybe are working remotely and can't get into their offices the chance to come and work remotely in Barbados with a Barbados welcome stamp. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I think that all of us recognize that apart from the fact that the Caribbean is one of the most travel and tourism dependent regions in the world, and we have the economic fallout is even far greater than the immediate fallout from the pandemic, public health wise, we recognize that in looking around, people seem to do better in outdoors and in this kind of weather. There may be no scientific evidence, there may be, but people feel better, they can breathe, they can do things. The salt water is good for you. You still have to work. This is not going anywhere in a hurry. There's no vaccine yet, there's no therapeutic yet. And why not? There are a lot of people who are already riding it out here. And we recognize that there is a market for it. It requires one or two small changes. We're going to amend the Income Tax Act to be able to deem persons non-resident for taxation purposes. Normally you are within 6 months, but we're going to do it for 12 months for this purpose. And I think we as a world have to work together. I mean, I talk a lot about moral leadership and walking the walk. And these are not things that we just say, we really believe them. And I believe that if we can help people ride it out while they help us ride out, then that's a win-win situation. And I can think of a lot of places that persons would like to be in the Caribbean, and why not Barbados?
Well, quite. I don't suppose you have a Good Morning Barbados, because I'd be very happy to come out there.
We'd all do a job swap, wouldn't we?
The whole team is saying we're very happy.
It's Mia Motley who says...
All right. I just let that play out with the pandemic stuff. You guys get an idea what Bedos was doing during the pandemic to manage things. Azuli's out there talking fool concerning PM Motley, but to be serious, you don't really hear too many Caribbean leaders speak on the things that she tends to speak on, and I gotta give her credit for that. I also want to give credit to the chat. The chat has had a lot of good video I'll give you as many of them as I can. I saw Brother Bakari join us in the chat, so shout out to Brother Bakari who's out there. In the meantime, though, let me hear from RBG. What do you say to the Caribbean government's position on reparations?
The first thing that comes to mind is that it's inherently ununified. You know, when you're looking at it geopolitically, you see, you know what I'm saying, the Caribbean islands where, you know, you had the plantations, you know what I'm saying, every single one. Let's look at every single one. It's if you know, it's the Caribbean. I think the best thing for it to do is to truly like do everything in its power to politically unify in its very into at least in as few political units as possible. I mean, there should not be a Grenada just sitting alone as an independent nation. All those islands should be swept up and just be one nation. And the people should just come together and just say, we're going to have political unity. There's no reason why all of those the small islands, the what they call the windwards. Please correct me. The islands that are like vertical. There's Dominica and all of those islands, Montserrat, all of those islands should be simply under one. And I mean, it's difficult because I mean, I'm not saying that it's easy, but if you want to, it's when you have a Grenada, I mean, just geopolitically, the spatially, I mean, it's a tiny voice saying, give us what we deserve. Give us what we deserve. And it's not, it's noble. It's needed. It should, the call should still be out there because you know what I'm saying? You gotta, I mean, naturally, what do you expect? I mean, do you expect people to go over and invade England and just pillage it and just like float back and just like, we got our stuff back. We good now. It doesn't quite work like that. The whole idea, I mean, the whole legality is just a way to amplify the concerns, just to put it out there on paper in the public record. It's just in public. It's the only thing that you can do as a start. The thing is, like, you know, every island, you know what I'm saying, it's going back to the fact that, you know, the Bahamas is still still a direct British colony. You know what I'm saying? Many of the islands in the Caribbean are, I mean, Puerto Rico is a commonwealth of the United States. You know what I'm saying? The people of Puerto Rico who have tried to be independent have been murdered. But Puerto Rico is right in the middle of the Caribbean. It's like it's the linchpin of the big islands and the small islands. But naturally, if you know what I'm saying, if you were to have a Caribbean like superpower, it'd probably be based right there in Puerto Rico. It'd be right. It's kind of in the middle of everything. But because of the, you know, you want to talk about American hegemony, it's like, you know, they want to make Puerto Rico a whole state, a whole United States state. It's like, you know what I'm saying, the whole proper incorporation to the United States, not this territorialism. Then imagine then what would happen to the Caribbean. It'll just, you know what I'm saying, it will shrivel up underneath, you know what I'm saying, the greater islands, the lesser islands. You know what I'm saying? There will be nothing. For starters, there'll be another leap for the United States into South America proper. You know, besides, you know, the whole, you know what I'm saying, it's things where, you know, if the Caribbean wants to help, I would say the Caribbean should support Puerto Rican nationalism as a start in Puerto Rican independence. As an American, I don't have any vested interest. I mean, for what, defense? You know what I'm saying? In my position, I mean, hell, if that's the case, let me just put drones in, you know what I'm saying, everywhere and just like grid the nation, grid the world, and you know what I'm saying, just, you know what I'm saying, just analyze everything. You know what I'm saying? Why am I going to stop at one island? It's like, let peoples be. And as a United States citizen, I don't want to see Puerto Rico as a U.S. state. I mean, if the Puerto Rican people, they are voting. I think, you know what I'm saying, they have the referendums. I think a majority have voted for independence, and that shit gets always canceled out and vetoed by a higher power. And you know what I'm saying, that, you know what I'm saying, that just nullifies and, you know what I'm saying, tries to, you know, hush the people about how they feel about their own stuff. As a, you know what I'm saying, just, you know what I'm saying, gaslighting is just a stock trade in governments nowadays. It's just to tell the people and amplify it with mass media that you're not hearing what you're hearing. You must be crazy. Ha ha ha. As they continue to do what they do. It's not easy to say this. I mean, the language barriers. I mean, you have three real. I mean, you got the Spanish. You know what I'm saying? You got the English. You got the French. You know what I'm saying? You got a bit splash of Dutch and Danish in there too. You know, and when we talk about Swahili in Africa being a unifying language, the Caribbean is a unifying language. They need to take all those languages and just throw them in a big pot of gumbo and just like serve it to their people so that we're all speaking the same language. That's a solution. I mean, how practical it would be? Hell, I mean, this goes back to, unifying the whole Hispaniola. That goes back to that. Just having, why is there two nations on that island? I mean, silly shit like the people. I mean, I would again blame. I mean, I hate to say blame, but I'm saying the Dominicans have most of the island. You know what I'm saying? Why is the lesser half so? You know what I'm saying? Why is this line? Why are y'all doing things a certain way over here and not really trying to say if peoples have interests, you would think a whole unified island is a natural thing. Like island nations should be inherently unified. You know what I'm saying? Unless in the various few cases around the world where people have the way that Haiti and Dominican Republic are separated is not the same as the way that like Scotland and England are separated. You know what I'm saying? It's just not the same. It's similar to how Papua New Guinea is just divided in half. That's not a natural division. Those people want to be in the same country. These are colonial tricks that people use on each other. I mean, the Caribbean can be sorted out. It's like the Caribbean is like, if the Terminator 2 where the Terminator gets shot and he's in 80,000 different pieces. They have to pull themselves together and just like coalesce. It just, I mean, I hate to turn into just black people have to be, because I mean the black states in the Caribbean are what? Jamaica, the Bahamas, Haiti. Some of the various islands that, you know what I'm saying, most of the leeward islands, you know what I'm saying, the smaller islands, let's not forget about Bermuda. You know what I'm saying? That's like an honorary Caribbean island in the middle of the Atlantic. Another British colony. You know what I'm saying? These are where our peoples are. It's difficult. I wish black people would build boats, build a fucking fleet, conquer the fucking ocean, fish on them boats, and just be out there. I think that's black power in the 21st century. Just conquering the goddamn sea. Say, drug us over here on boats. Why aren't we building boats? And that's the only thing. Just be. If they tear them down, you'll build more. You build more. You build more. Unless we want to just hop on people's planes, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna pass the mic.
I appreciate that, RBG. I will say to Black Steel's point, there was a so-called West Indian Federation. To me, the name of it was the beginning problem anyway, because we're not Indian, much less West Indians. But there was a short-lived federation. I think a couple of things led to its downfall, and some of you in the chat have kind of touched on it. One of the things that happened, which was weird, they bickered over where the capital would be. Will it be in Trinidad or will it be in Haiti? Some people wanted it to be. They bickered over things like that. But I think the greatest problem was most of the islands did not have independence. Because this thing was like before 62. So most of them didn't have independence. And these guys, like Azuli or someone said in the chat, he said Black Caribbean leaders operate in a feminine manner. A lot of them were afraid. And I will even be honest and say that my country's people were afraid too. They decided to hitch their cart to America. They thought that their future as far as economics would have been better off with America than, say, with the rest of the Caribbean. That's a shame that happened. But a lot of folks were not independent. I think that's why it didn't last. Plus the minor, the petty bickering, who's going to be the leader, where's it going to be headquartered, all that kind of thing was a part of it. You guys in the chat have a lot of good comments. I'll try to get to most of them. in a second, but let me get through the Black Steel, and then I'll read, actually, to Buana. No, actually, Black Steel, and then I'll read the comments in a second. Black Steel would say.
So yeah, so it says that the two largest provinces were Jamaica and Trinidad. They couldn't agree on the capital. They couldn't agree on basically every individual province had their own economy. So they all had different tariffs and whatnot. So they couldn't come to an agreement about that. They didn't agree about the ability of the government to have taxes. Then you had the difficulty between the East Indians and the Afro Caribbean people. It was a lot of mess. But back to the original topic. Of course, I believe that African people deserve reparations. That's a no-brainer. But I do believe that it has to be done in a unified manner. So, like RBG was saying, it can't be this island here, this island here, this island here. We have to all approach it as one people. So, another thing too, you have to have leverage. We don't really have any leverage to where if you don't pay, then this is going to happen. We don't have that leverage. So these European countries, they don't want to pay, and we're not in a position where we can make them pay. So I think we're going to have to rearrange our political system, our governmental system, to where we have the power. Because that's one thing, is that when you're asking for reparations as a powerless people, it just comes across as begging. And we don't want to come as beggars. We need to come across and as though we are demanding this, and if you don't pay us, this is what's going to happen. So again, I support the idea of reparations, and it's not just about money. When excuse me, when you pay reparations, you want to return people from the state from which they were. You took them from their homes, you took their land, their language, their culture. How do you repay that? How is it that you can pay people back for all of the centuries of harm and trauma you've caused? You can't put a price tag on that. So, I when I look at reparations, I look at how other cultures have approached reparations in the past, be it with the Japanese and their internment, even with what Germany did in Namibia around the beginning of the 21st century. They're working out a reparation between the Herero and Namibia, and what Germans did to them in the first genocide of the 20th century that we don't really talk about. But it's if we can get our act together, we can organize as African people, then we'll be in a position to demand, not ask, but demand reparations. And then we have control over our resources, control over our economies, to where if you don't pay, we're going to cut the shipment of whatever by 50% until you pay us our money. Then at that point we can then start to demand reparations. So like Rajuli said, we lost a war. You're not getting reparations. To his point, that's true. Usually you ask for reparations once you defeat your enemy. But the only thing is that historically there's been people who've been defeated in wars and they still got reparations back. Like, for example, the Japanese who were interned in the United States in World War II illegally, they were locked up and they got reparations back from Germany has given reparations to Israel. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. So, and the United States has paid those people who are interned in Japanese internment camps. But the problem is that Black people are not Japanese and we ain't Jews. There's no respect for us. There's no love for us. So we got to come in there demanding. We're not asking shit. So until we get a power base, it's just talk. So I'll pass the mic and I'll leave it there.
Appreciate that. Black Seal in the chat. Yana B said, I wasn't for reparations, but they give money to these illegals in other countries. Pay up 100. Keta says you need power to get reparations. Germany paid reparations to the Jews because the Allies forced it to. But it never will pay a cent to Namibia. You need power to get this done. Lero says, a shout out to Lero. Lero says reparations is pathetic from all angles. All the crimes committed against our ancestors, it's a defeatist position, she says. Erzulism said the woman, talking about PM Motley, got more bass in her voice than Buana and Bakari defending HBCUs. That got a good laugh from Keter. Keter says what she doesn't get, and I wonder about this too, Keter. He says what she doesn't get is that America needs access to our markets. The way they won't help, that way they won't help us develop. How will they sell their stuff? We import over 80% of our food. Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons why Haiti is kept that way is because that's a major. If you look at Haiti and Jamaica, and in Central America, you look at Panama and Belize and stuff, those are major waterways for America to get its stuff. You have to keep those places underdeveloped so that they don't have that power to step to you and say, hey, listen, you're going to pay us equal, full value for our stuff. Lero says her analysis is completely flawed, though. Our plights are absolutely connected. I just can't agree with asking our enemies to make amends. Let me see. I can't get to all of them. Brother Bakari said reparations will never be given as long as black people don't fight together. Black people here on the island should be fighting together, but for some strange reason, we don't see that. With that said, let's go to Buana and hear his thoughts. Buana, what's say?
Yeah, let me first say, because Azuli is making some wild comments in the chat, some real wild ones. Let me first say, I believe that Haiti is the vanguard for the black world, not only for the current one, but for the one to come. Don't talk crazy about black women Azuli. Just because she has a deep voice, that does not make her a man. Also, go a little bit deeper, bro. You know what I mean? Listen to the content of what she's saying. Get beyond the fact that she may have a deep voice and try to see whether what she's saying is true or what she's saying is a bunch of nonsense. Let's get to that. The vanguard of the black world should be thinking deeper. The people of the vanguard of the black world should think a little bit deeper than this surface level. Or she got a deep voice, she's a man, so we can spread it out. Don't do that, man. I already getting texts off of that from all around the world. The fact that y'all being critical of the fact that you have a deep voice. But needless to say, let me just say this. I don't agree with the Caribbean's position on reparations. I don't agree with it. I'm not a big reparationist. I'm not a big reparationist whatsoever. And the ideas of what they have in as far as asking for reparations, I think some of the things are fanciful and ridiculous. For instance, when she says that, oh, we want the governments of the world to repair us psychologically. Why would they do that? That's not in their interest. Why would they repair the mind of you and make you whole? And to make you whole would be against their interest. That's ridiculous. Why would they do that? Why would they make you? Why? Another thing is this: y'all going around the world asking for an apology, asking for them to say, "Oh, they sorry for mistreating you." Why would they beg you? Why would they say that they sorry for mistreating you? And why are you going around the world to have them express that to you? The deed has been done already. It seems that they are unapologetic about it. You move on from that. Move on from that. You know what I mean? Disassociate yourself from these people and move on from that. You're not going to be friends. We're not going to make friendly with these people who have been historically the abuse of your ancestors for generations. So why are you asking for an apology? Another thing too is what she say? She mentioned something else. I can't remember the ridiculous things these people get together and spend the Caribbean people money on to get together and discuss. And this is what you all come up with in terms of reparations. Come on, man. Come on. You gotta let these people go. If there comes a time in any relationship when a relationship no longer works, that you must disassociate yourself from the relationship. Get a divorce. We must divorce ourselves from our colonial masters and forge our own way for ourselves. And stop trying to hold on to the deed that's already been done. Only a person who is still trying to continue a relationship that is obviously toxic and rotten to the core, you want something from them. It's time to say, it's time to bid each other adieu and go our separate ways. Now, in terms of Mia Mottley, I love Mia Mottley. Which prime minister in the last 20, 30, 40 years have ever mentioned the name of Marcus Garvey? Point me to any one of them. We could say that these leaders are milk toast leaders. These leaders are soft. The mere fact that she mentioned Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley and referencing to doing for self in terms of going for self, this is unprecedented. Prime ministers don't talk like this, especially Caribbean prime ministers. The mere fact that she has Marcus Garvey in her mouth is a revolutionary act itself, because it has not been done. These brothers are so afraid. So I applaud her with these kinds of things. She is walking a very thin line. She trying to play both sides of the fence. And what's unfortunate for her, and as much as I love her, what is unfortunate for her is she is gonna come to the realization is you can't play two sides of the fence, two sides of the fence. You have to make a decision. Either you're gonna be for or against. Either you're gonna be for or against. And I understand the neighbors to the north are so powerful that you have to tread the needle, because if you don't tread the needle, your people gonna suffer. So it puts you in uncomfortable situations where you have to walk a very fine line in the things that you could say and you can't say publicly. But I think that she does that very well, just as the same way the white men in England used to love Margaret Thatcher. The black men should be able to appreciate a person like Mia Mottley, because she is speaking the language and the sentiments of many black Caribbean people unapologetically. And but in terms of what the CARICOM is trying to do, I don't go with that narrative at all. I think that many of these things that they came up with in meetings in terms of CARICOM is just absolute nonsense. And I would really just cast it aside and I would revamp it completely. But I would just leave it there. I would leave it there.
Well, Barnum, before you go, what response would you give to Azuli in the chat on this comment? By the way, shout out to Barnum's people around the world who texted him, who are apparently watching the show. Thank you for tuning in. So what would you say to Azuliism's Jean Bertrand Aristide demanding reparations from France, Spain, America, and the Dominicans? So what are you talking about? She is a pawn.
I like Aristide. I like the Lavalas movement. But the Lavalas, John Bertrand Aristide, for me, it seemed as initially he was talking one thing. And when Clinton them put him back in office, he started talking different. Now, his reasons for being escorted out of that country is another kind of situation going. And why his reasons for coming back is very confusing to me, because he ain't running for office. He ain't really trying to do any. I don't know what Aristide's position is politically in Haiti right now. I really don't know. What it is. Maybe he's trying to play behind the scenes to be one of the powerful movers and shakers within the government itself. But I don't know what Aristide is actively trying to do within Haiti. Why did he come back? When he came back, what is his purpose and mission in Haiti? But I would say this, historically, when Aristide was initially talking, as a Catholic priest or whatever, when he get what they call it, they throw him out of the Catholic organization or whatever. When he was initially talking, he seemed to have the love and appreciation of the Haitian people. When the Clintons them put him back in office after they threw him out, he was talking a little bit different. I don't know what his current position is now, but in terms of reparations, there's so much behind the scenes, unseen hand movement that happens within the Caribbean. You really don't know to come to certain conclusions on specific people, because there is a mask that happens outside of the United States. Outside of the United States, the checks and balances that happens in the United States, it doesn't happen outside of the United States. So you really can't tell who is who. You can't tell who is who based on what they say. You have to really watch in their actions and determine who is who. You really have to watch. So I can't really conclude on terms on Aristide, why is he currently in Haiti right now, and what his purpose and mission is currently in Haiti right now. I know what he said in the past, but currently I really don't know. So I don't want to speak on
that. Let's welcome in Arzuli this week. Arzuli, I want you to respond first to what Keda has to say here, and then talk about the topic at hand. Go ahead. First of all, how are you this week?
I'm fine. What did you see what Keda has to say? I didn't see anything what she said.
Yeah, it's on the screen right now.
Arzuli, stop calling black women a man. It's a white man's talking point. They like trying to undermine our sisters by calling them a man. All right, that man over there, stop calling her a man. She has so much bass in the voice. I don't know. I mean, if that's a woman, okay, whatever. But back to what I'm saying. What I was saying. What? She's just a pawn. She just mentioned and said that, oh, we have to have a conversation with Prince Harry. What? So yeah, I didn't get that part when she said, oh, like Prince Harry said, it needs to be a conversation. What conversation are we having? You stole from our people. You imprisoned, enslaved our people. What conversation? And for what Boana is talking about, I'm telling you, you said which leader in the 20 years who asked for that? Jean-Bertrand Aristide asked for reparation from all the major powers. And you know what they did? They kicked them out. They kicked them out. If this, I'm gonna give that lady 5 years. If she's still there, all of that is just bull talk. Jean-Bertrand Aristide brought the case to the United Nations and asked France, Spain, all them people for the money that when they did Haiti dirty. That's a leadership. That's a man. And for that, he got kicked out, not only once, but twice. And for you to say, oh, when he came back, he spoke differently. Yeah, he spoke differently because he had to give some in order to come back.
So,
where was all these African nations? Let me finish. Where was all these African nation, Caribbean nation helping him get back? Y'all wasn't nowhere. So you just said, oh, she mentioned Marcus Garvey, and this is all beautiful words to get y'all emotionally attached to her. What are we talking about? Y'all have no power because when Jean-Bertrand Aristide got kicked out the first time, or even the second time, he had gone to Jamaica. George Bush made one phone call and said, yo, get that man out of here. If not, all your visas is done. You know what, the next day, Jean-Bertrand Aristide was shipped to Africa. This lady just said, oh, we need to have a conversation because Prince Harry said that. What? What are we saying? I just got on this because you said no leaders in the next 20 years ask for what?
So can I respond?
No, you cannot respond because you just said, oh, I don't know what Aristide is doing down there. He's not doing nothing because he know all y'all black people ain't about shit. You know what he did when he went back there? He built schools. He built a university. That's why they say he did what he's doing back there. But you, boy, I want to talk about barbecue over there, a piece of shit down there. So we're talking about a reparation. Reparation? Like the brother said, how you gonna beg? You begging for reparation? They're not gonna give it to you because their economy is tied to it. They'll be stupid to give you reparation. That's it.
Okay, so now I can respond. So you say that when Aristide came back into office, he was talking different because you know why? You have to give some to get some. That's your statement. So if you could acknowledge the fact that if he is a leader of a country and he dealing with international and global affairs, that you can't that you have to be diplomatic in the way that you operate internationally. Why is it that you give him leeway, but you don't give her the same kind of leeway? She has mentioned. Let me finish. I interrupt you one time. You say that she was mentioned the Prince of England or whatever and things of that nature, but you don't mention the fact that she was the first one to helm relationships between Ghana, Nigeria, and other African nations in terms of reestablishing a international continental relationship that was severed a long time ago. She's at the helm of that. There are Barbados the airlines that flying directly. They ain't going through Europe like most of these countries. They're flying directly to the country of Ghana. They have more of a bigger relationship than most blacks in the Caribbean and even in the Americas, I would claim. Most relationships. So if you ain't following the words, you follow the action. And this is what this lady has actively done. This is the reason why I give her credit. I give her credit. We could talk about what Aristide, the statements that he would have made. Maybe it did fall on deaf ears, but it's just because his statements fall on deaf ears in the Caribbean, from the Caribbean, does that mean you should stop asking? He ain't the only one. Aristide come in a long line of other Caribbean leaders who have tried to do certain things within the Caribbean. We talk about Maurice Bishop here. We talk about Mia Motley. We talk about many Caribbean leaders who have actively tried to do certain things and they get castigated for it. Aristide is just in a long line of one of them who unfortunately fall at the wrong side of Western imperial powers. These people have more strategic, economic, military might than we do. That don't necessarily cause us to stop talking. We can continue to talk about it until we get up and actively do something about it. But to name call us, that's your right. You could name call us all every day. You know what they used to. You know what Thomas Jefferson called your leadership in Haiti at the time of the revolution. He say a bunch of French speaking niggas. What is this? I have to do business with them. So you could name call us all you want. You coming in a long line with other Thomas Jefferson them in the world. You speaking like them when you make comments about us. In terms of leadership, because you're sounding like them. Needless to say, that's fine. You hold the opposition. All I'm saying is the Caribbean have a right to be self-determining, and we will be self-determining. We're gonna get there. We ain't get there yet, but we're gonna eventually get there. With the criticism, with the name calling, you call a woman a man and things like this is an obvious woman. I mean, she has a bass in her voice. So what? Women have bass in their voice. Let's look beneath the surface and watch the content of what she's actually talking about in front of a mass European audience. And most black leaders don't talk like this. And outside of that, just investigate the things that this lady have actively done. And give her credit for that as well. And before you castigate the woman, like I say, I consider Haitian people and Haiti to be the vanguard of the black world. And I think that Haitian people need to start talking like that. Stop talking so reckless. Y'all are you too reckless. You too reckless. And you should know better by now. Because you've been exposed to better information. That's all I'm saying. But I'll leave it there.
Aristide, if you want to do something, you bring that shit to the United Nations. She's just talking. Until you bring all of that plight to the United Nations, that shit is just talking. And for Aristide, when he did that the first time, he got kicked out. Who you think kicked him out? So if he had to do what deals is she doing? Why is she sitting down? She didn't do nothing. Aristide had to make those deals because there was no other country, Kenya wasn't there, Ghana wasn't there to talk about, hey, yeah, we got your back. Because at the end of the day, that's the thing that they call here the modern, what is it, the something doctrine. Other countries from the East cannot meddle and countries' business that are here and the West Coast. Is it the Martin doctrine? Whatever doctrine that was. So
the Monroe doctrine.
The Monroe doctrine. Other countries can. So all of a sudden now Kenya could come and do some shit right here. So for this lady So she's talking. She just said it. We have to have a conversation. What the hell is that? A conversation after 500 years and years and years and years of thieving? And then she called on the name of the. She called on the son of the people that was colonizing her country. And now, what you want to focus? Oh, I shouldn't call her a man. That's what you want to focus on. The lady got a deep voice. So am I going to come to her face and call her? I mean, so people can't joke no more.
People good joke, but I just.
But y'all want to take that shit seriously?
No,
so,
I don't take it. No, I don't take it. Julie, I just
no.
Like,
You did that on purpose because you said, "Oh, as a Haitian Vanguard, you should not be talking about." The lady sound like a man, and I'm not surprised if she's a man.
Julie, I personally get into access from women who say on this panel that we hate women. And they say, well, why are you all attacking this woman because she has a
I don't care what they do. I don't care what they think. The same women are honing all the men down in the Caribbean. I don't care. Anyway,
okay,
back to
no problem. I just
back to the,
all I'm saying is what you saying is if you have criticisms of this lady and you say that we could do better in the Caribbean, I'm saying that I don't know the revolutionary.
I'm saying it's just talk.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Sorry.
You say it's just talk. The rest of the black world don't speak Creole. We don't know the revolutionary groups. We need to go send money, military support, guns, whatever. You know, because with Jamaica they used to send guns and barrels to fight against these guys coming in the country. We don't know who these people are. You know Creole. I don't know Creole.
Stop that shit. Stop that shit. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. Let me tell you what that makes no sense. Let me tell you what you just said.
Point me to the people who I need to.
Please, that makes no sense.
Point me to the people who I need to go talk to.
That should make no fucking sense. If there's a will, there's a way. Didn't you talk about what's the guy that was with Fidel Castro? Then Chad claimed he went all the way to Africa to fight with them. He didn't speak their language.
No, Julia asking, point me to the people who
I don't care what you just said. You just use it because we don't speak the point you to white people.
When you say that Haiti need to stand on their own border, they need to be independent. I believe that you believe this. Haiti needs to be an independent country, absent anybody trying to come and dictate and do certain things in the country. There are elements of the people who are trying to fight for their freedoms within that country. I'm saying that I don't speak the language. Point me and direct me to the people who I need to actively speak to because you believe that these leaders are puppets. So I'm saying that there people exist who inside that country who really actively trying to fight for the rights of the Haitian people. Point me to them and let me see if I see he suck his teeth. So when it comes to a point when we want to actively do something, you suck your teeth.
So you think I'm connected politically? Are you just being serious right now?
No, I'm saying that.
Oh, you just want to talk? This is what I'm talking about. What we're doing is what is it? Word masturbation, just like she's doing. At the end of the day, when there's no when there's no force behind what you're asking, you're just gonna have years of verbal masturbation and thesis and paper written and books written. Friend, what's this guy named Sanon? How long Sanon's been writing about this? We're still here.
So what should she be doing as a prime minister of Barbados to help and assist Haiti? What should she be doing? I'm asking.
What she should be doing? Take that shit to the United Nations. That's what she should be doing.
Yeah, but she been in the United. She just finished speaking in the United Nations, really. She just finished speaking in the United Nations. Did you even watch the conversation in the United Nations that she gave? She just did it a minute ago. It's on all over YouTube. Did you watch it?
Okay. I did not watch it.
I'm asking a question.
I just told you I did not watch it.
So
what did she talk about? What did she talk about?
I'm asking. No, brother.
What you watched it? What did she talk about?
But you are.
I just told you I did not watch it. So let's kill that in the noise. What did she talk about?
She talked about exactly what we're talking about right now. The need, the necessariness for Black people in the Caribbean, first of all, to do for themselves, to be unfettered, unrestricted, to having outside influences participating and messing up and being interrupting the lives of people in the Caribbean itself. Now, I paraphrasing, but I'm saying that you, as a Caribbean man, should watch it just as I have. Before you criticize this woman, go do that first, and let's have a conversation afterwards. That's what I would suggest.
I want y'all to keep that same energy because we're going to talk about reparations again in the next prompt. Great conversation, by the way. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 for time's sake. It's also a conversation on reparations. Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 says Ghana's position on reparations. Shout out to Trigger Happy 262. Let's see what Ghana has to say about reparations.
It is time to bring the subject of reparations firmly to the fore.
Welcome to Africa at the UN.
Mr. President, we do not seek to shirk any responsibility for problems we face that are of our own making. And it bears repeating that we are not craving for sympathy, and we do not want to be a scar on anybody's conscience. But we cannot, and the world should not pretend that the present-day economic and social conditions of Africa have nothing to do with the historical injustices that have fashioned the structures of the world. It is time to acknowledge openly that much of Europe and the United States have been built from the vast wealth harvested from the sweat, tears, blood, and horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and the centuries of colonial exploitation. Maybe we should also admit that it cannot be easy to build confident and prosperous societies from nations that for centuries have their natural resources looted and their peoples traded as commodities. For centuries, the world has been unwilling and unable to confront the realities of the consequences of the slave trade. But gradually, this is changing, and it is time to bring the subject of reparations firmly to the fore. Granted, the current generations are not the ones that engaged in the slave trade, but that grand inhuman enterprise was state-sponsored and deliberate, and its benefits are clearly interwoven with the present-day economic architecture of the nations that designed and executed it. Reparations must be paid for the slave trade. No amount of money will ever make up for the horrors, but it would make the point that evil was perpetrated, that millions of productive Africans were snatched from the embrace of our continent and put to work in the Americas and the Caribbean without compensation for their labor. If there are any hesitations in some minds about the paying of reparations, it is worth considering the fact that when slavery was abolished, the slave owners were compensated for the loss of the slaves because the human beings were labeled as property, deemed to be commodities. Surely, this is a matter that the world must confront and can no longer ignore. The African Union has authorized Ghana to hold a global conference on the issue in November in Accra. It is probably also the time to return to that vexed subject of illicit financial outflows out of the continent of Africa. I refer to the report of the panel chaired by the highly respected former South African President Thabo Mbeki on the illicit flow of funds from Africa, which states that Africa is losing annually more than 88 billion United States dollars through illicit financial outflows. Yes, those monies too must be returned to the continent. It is difficult to understand why the recipient countries are comfortable about retaining such funds and are happy to call those countries from whom the monies are taken as corrupt. I believe that a joint task force of the African Union Commission and the OECD Secretariat under the auspices of the United Nations should be charged to find ways of stopping the damaging outflows. Mr. President, before the pandemic, We, like many other parts of the world, were making progress with the 17 SDGs, and we had good reason to believe we would achieve the 2030 target. Today, the picture we have on our performance is not very bright. Most of the 21 targets designated for achievement by 2020 have not been met, and we are not on track to achieve many other targets by 2030. According to the 2023 SDG report, just 12% of the SDG targets are on track to be achieved. Progress on 50% of the targets is weak. The most disappointing part is that we have stalled or retrogressed more than 30% of the targets. We need to accelerate action on the entire project. Mr. President, it is within our capacity to turn things around. A good start would be to make the needed changes to the structures of our organization. Then we can rebuild trust and reignite global solidarity. Mr. President, I thank you for your attention.
On behalf of this assembly, I wish to thank the President
firmly to.
All right. Ghana's position on reparations. That should be topic number 3. Trigger Happy 262 plus said, what did he say? He said, don't trust the guy. Why can't I find a comment? Oh, yeah. He says, LOL, don't take the fraudster seriously. He is destroying the country right now. He says, if he's destroying if he's destroying Ghana right now, no way is his call for reparations meaningful. It should be the position of our African leadership who are revolutionary and powerful. Trigger says, his ideal vision is that Africans become powerful and we use reparations to make Europe into a backwater in order to protect ourselves for potential retaliation. He had more to say, but it's more so to clarify that last point about backwater or not. But that should be topic number 3. RBG, what did you hear from Ghana's president?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I was kind of distracted doing something else. I was thinking about what I was saying. But, I mean, if Trigger Happy is correct in what he's saying, then it's like, this is why the UN, you know what I'm saying? I know the UN that's that globalist Rockefeller money. That's that, you know what I'm saying? A whole bunch of rich folks saying that, well, y'all really don't actually have power. So we'll just make this building and this pretty little thing where we'll come around and act like, everything's the same. Everything's, United Nations, the kids, UNICEF, everything, the weather, make sure that the elephants is okay. And, the UN is blue and white and it's pretty and, everyone comes together. But it's not really affecting everyone's day to day, make sure that they eat, that they, it's just the idea it's just the fact that, the white folks recognize that they're able to attract people to New York City and do all this stuff here in this country for whatever reason. Cause I grew up, thinking that the UN was about something, but it took me, a good 20 odd years to realize, the UN ain't nothing. It's just, it's whole fraud, it's whole racket. It's not, world leaders may go there, but there's no world policy. And even if there was, I don't want Africa to worry about world policies. You know what I'm saying? African people need to worry about African territorialism and the things surrounding it, and anything that would be coming from wherever that would, cause it the problems. But Africa don't need to worry about world policy per se. It's just a way, it's a way of nullifying actual counter arguments. You know what I'm saying? The UN only does things that bring in, the UN peacekeepers went to Haiti, brought in the cholera. The UN is no good. It's no good, man. The UN, is just nasty. It does all kinds of atrocious things. UN peacekeepers, that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. I was just saying in the chat, it's what I'm saying? It's we have a good leader somewhere, you know, if you were another country, you'd be like, man, if he could actually just come here. I mean, even though things is different, it's just like, you know, people is people. If you good in one country, you might be good in another one. The idea like, yo, I done my 4 years here. I'm about to, you know, and you know, people know that you're good, and that's the whole idea that like everyone should have their own stuff. And I mean, to the best of your ability, you don't need to be nosy and spending literal time focusing on other people when you can be focusing on yourself, literally. You know what I'm saying? In your own spaces. But when you know, you have ears and, you know, sound travels across borders and shit. So, you know, you hear the geopolitical echoes of the people, you know what I'm saying, reverberating beyond, you know, countries in Africa. So it's like you hear and you see people. And there's good leaders who I swear other African people are like, man, I wish I had him on my team. That's what I'm saying. Like, you have people like, you know, your lieutenants, your ministers who are out there doing it. It's like, man, I need someone out there who is scientifically like that. How do I pull these people off? If you could like, if Africa could like see that, having like, when we talk about economics of literally moving your best people from one spot in Africa to another, without necessarily losing your own base, you know, national, your home teamism, but it's just like, yo, in the name of the greater Africa, look, I'm going to go here, you know what I'm saying, to this other country. I'm going to put in this work for another African nation. I'm going to go out here and make sure I'm going to, you know what I'm saying, study it up, and I'm going to make it my own because we are peoples, right? And then I'm going to go back home because I ain't going to stay here forever. I'm not going to go, you know what I'm saying? You would have superstar Africans. You wouldn't just have one person that we all look up to. I hate to use it. I don't mean the sports analogy and kind of like, you know, any kind to like, you know, reduce any kind of people, anything like, you know, like a game. But I think that like when pouring out there for your country and your people, you about it. If you really about this, we can't look. I think that when we say African nationalism, I mean, it's a colonialism. You know what I'm saying? It's that neo-colonialism. It's not nationalism. It's just the whole idea of these foundational borders. You know what I'm saying? I think about it. I think about it a lot. The whole colonialism back in the Caribbean. Like, why are our African people like really like, is it really that hard to say like African people we really don't need this border right here between me and these other three people? I'm just gonna say like, look, I know y'all trust us, right? And like y'all can just like come in here as people, right? And just like do what y'all do. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's like, I can think about it. It's just like I within reasons of assessment and keeping it on a quiet and being incremental about it, I suppose. You don't want to be too fast and furious with it because someone else was coming. You know, you can do this, but these things should have already been happening. A lot of you know, like what's a Togo? What's a Benin? You know, I've said this before. I look at these countries, it's like they're bases of operation for other nations to use them as platforms to send it at this point, drones or whatever, peoples. I swear a motherfucker just halo jump, you know what I'm saying, just straight into Africa. You know what I'm saying? Just like, where they come from? You know what I'm saying? It's stupid. I mean, I'm gonna pass the mic.
All right, thanks, RBG. Shout out to the Cassidra Podcast who's here. That's D-Web. Thanks for coming through. Azuli, you heard RBG talk a lot about the UN and how it's not to be trusted. I know in the last prompt you seem to have some faith in the UN, talking about Mia not having gone to them versus Aristide who did. So what say you to what you heard RBG say in relation to the prompt?
What I was saying is that Jean-Bertrand Aristide was the first to go and bring the reparation topic talk to the United Nations, because they tell you, they say if you want reparation, if a nation has wronged your nation, you have to bring it to the United Nations. So whether the United Nations is on some BS or whatever, which they are probably, Jean-Bertrand Aristide did it. I'm not saying that people, when you go to the United Nations, they're gonna be all, yeah, let's go do that. No, but I'm saying, as a nation, you have to bring Haiti, because Boana said, or Mia was the only one that said something about, no. Jean-Bertrand Aristide said that in 1990 something. So because he was talking on that reparation, and talking reparation, and with the mentality of the Haitian people, that was gonna start a flame. and France didn't want that. And Jean-Bertrand Aristide got kicked out of there because of his talking points and of his love for the people of Haiti and for black people in general. So this guy right here, I know the United States and built on shit because they the one that brought the same soldiers to Haiti and gave the people cholera that killed like over 10,000 or 15,000 people. So him going in there and wearing a suit, all of that, and I don't, like I said, if you don't have anything to back that talk, it's all for nothing. Yes, it looks nice, or he said about it. And do I know if this guy is genuine? But the brother just said this guy is not genuine. This guy is destroying his own country. So all of these people, a lot of people are puppet on the string and control opposition. So I don't know what is this gonna do. This is not the first time. Like I said, people have been talking about reparations since the beginning of time, since 20, 30, 40 years back. So Buana was talking about, most of the speech she was giving in the United States was on global warming and the earth. So I'm just saying that, like other people are saying, how do you get people who beat you in a game of war, whatever, and enslaved you with all of that? How are you going to go back to them and ask them for reparation? As a man, you get on there and you just talk like that? He knows nothing is going to come out of there. Just beautiful words, verbal masturbation, got nice European suits on, nice glasses, and then just, what are we doing? You better go back to your country and tell your people to replant, plant, bring the trees back, plant, feed your own people, then going on there and asking for reparation with nothing to back it up. Just victimhood. Oh, you kill my people, and he's talking like Gas would have said. Let's look at his lineage. Maybe his family was selling. He's the one that sold our people to the European. Do we know his background? All the shit he's talking. Maybe he was one of those slave catchers. So I'm saying, oh, go build your country, bro. Tell your people to plant food so you don't have to. But whatever, man. This show is all messed up, man. That's all I have to say.
I appreciate that. Yeah, the guy does look kind of like King Kai from Dragon Ball. Let's go to Black Steel. Black Steel, Ghana's position on reparations. What say you?
Well, I would just repeat what I said on the previous prompt, that reparations without a means to punish people who don't pay it is just begging. I mean, he talks a good talk, and it sounds good. And he's right, but overall, without power, you can't really. You're just talking trash. You're just asking. You're begging. Please acknowledge what you did to us. It was wrong a long time ago, and you shouldn't have done it. And you should pay us. Yeah, they should pay. And these crackers know that what they did was wrong, but they don't care, and you can't make them pay. And the way the United Nations is set up, especially the Security Council, is that there's 5 permanent members on the UN Security Council: United States, Russia, Great Britain, France, China. All of these countries have veto power. So even if every country agrees, if one country vetoes it, then nothing happens. So if every country said, okay, we should pay reparations, if the US says, no, we ain't paying shit, that's it. That's the end of it. So the United Nations in of itself is a corrupt organization, because the Security Council is determined by the winners of World War II. So we're still going by whoever won in World War II determines who's on the Security Council. So you got a few African nations there, a couple Asian nations, but none of them are permanent. So if a permanent member of the Security Council decides to veto a resolution, that's it. That's it. So for years, every nation in the world has asked that the blockade against Cuba be lifted for years. The United States vetoes it every time. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And that's the same thing with reparations. So until we're coming from a position of strength, from a position of unity, we're not going to see any movement on the reparations. That's the same thing with these idiots in the U.S., these whole foundational Black Americans. You're not getting shit because white people don't want to give it to you, and you can't make them. That's it. That's it. That's all. So until we organize with African people globally, take control of our resources, take control of our land, control of our people, then we can say, hey, you owe us some money. Remember that shit you did to us? Pay up. Until then, it's like Razuli say, it's just verbal masturbation. I'll leave it there.
I appreciate that call. Shout out to Jose, who's in the chat. He said the League of Nations version 2, speaking of the UN. Harsh Reality Podcast says reparations historically was a penalty paid by the loser of a war to the victors, asinine for conquered people to quote unquote ask for reparations without power. That's called begging where I'm from. With all that said and heard, Buana, what say you to all of it?
Yeah. So I ain't trying to get. Let me first say that I ain't trying to get no beef with my brothers tonight. You know, despite the fact that we may carry different positions. And let me also say too, in terms of the Haitian politics that I carry, I think that the Lavalas movement and George Jean Aristide was one of the best hopes for Haiti. Was one of the best hopes for Haiti. Why he's not currently running, I don't know the politics of it. I personally think Sweet Mickey is a gangster. I think that the president who just got slaughtered, I think he was a gangster too. You know, this is where my politics lie in terms of Haitian politics. So I'll leave it that there. So people who really be able to understand where I'm coming from with that. In terms of this particular gentleman, what I would say is this: we in the West see that Pan-Africanism is one-sided. We say that it is not being reciprocated by the African nation. This man gets on a public platform before the UN, before the world, and expresses something that the Western Black people been expressing for a very long time. It suggests that he is in concert with the Blacks in the Western world. And it seems like we sitting saying the man, oh, it don't mean nothing, or he's a CIA agent, he's a plant, he's a puppet. Before we ask that, he is the president of African nation. So I am asking, before we disparage the possible relationship that we could carry with this particular gentleman, because there are many Black people in the Western world who have went to Ghana, they've built houses, they've started businesses, they've created all manner of different businesses within that country. His acknowledgement is something different from most leaders of the Western world and most Black leaders who even speak on these kinds of issues and matters. He has it in his mouth. And because he has the argument of reparations in his mouth, why would we wish to discount him? He is really one of the few African Black people standing on a public platform, even discussing these issues. When in fact, you are citizens of nations where your leaders don't even address these issues. Not at all. Not at all. They discount it off to the back. This man he is in political leadership to do something in terms, because he is just acknowledging your pain where your leadership does not even acknowledge it. So my thing is, I would try to approach this man, you know, in an organized way to see, well, what can we do to further this relationship? What can we get and benefit out of this relationship? How can we move forward in the relationship? And I feel like us sometimes when the ball is in our hand, we become very nervous because we are being made responsible to take hold of our own agency. Because if your leaders ain't listening to y'all, and this man saying, well, what can we do? We acknowledge y'all pain, we acknowledge the past, we acknowledge the hurt. How many times does African tribal men or chiefs have to say sorry for slavery when the people who was most guilty of sorry, they don't even acknowledge slavery? These people are acknowledging slavery. These people are acknowledging the history, the past, and these people have land and they are actively in power currently. Why would I want to dismiss this man and call him an implant? I don't know what he's doing. I need to go investigate for myself personally. Someone on the internet says, well, he's doing something that's harmful. That's a statement. That's a statement. Why not investigate for yourself and find out? Because, like I say, there are Western people in a black world who have actively gone to Ghana and have done things that would be progressive for their own selves, for their own families. And he was one of the few leaders in the Western world who was acknowledging these things. So I would not dismiss him out of hand. You know, like I say, he is one of the few people who's actively doing it, and I wouldn't dismiss it. That's where I stand with it. But I'll leave it there.
I appreciate that. One. Does anyone else want to add any last words to this?
I'll make it quick. So one, I agree that he is saying the right things. I don't disagree with you on that. I only say that just talking is not enough. And I guess I understand Erzuli's frustration because that's all anybody ever does is talk. But when it comes to the real nitty gritty of political organization, that's when we have problems. So I agree. He's saying the right things. He is saying that we do need, and he's right. But let's try to move beyond, just the good speeches and get to the actual work, because the European is not going to give us anything. They don't even want to give us credit for shit we built. They come to our continent, steal our stuff, and claim that some aliens built the shit. So I just want to see us move into a more proactive stage instead of just
Black Steel. What is the year of return?
I mean, the year of return was when they made it where African people could return back to Africa. But how many were able to take part in that?
But didn't that start in Ghana? Didn't they start doing that in Ghana? Wasn't that the policy that they put in place in Ghana?
Yes, it was.
So I would suggest that it's not just speech. People, there are active movements that's happening on the ground that where you could point to certain things and say, well, these kinds of things are happening. There's a reason why so many people from the Western world, Black people are moving to Ghana, because it seems to me that there are policies in place where the government is facilitating that to happen. So it's past beyond the point of just grandiose speeches. You know what I mean? I believe. But I might be wrong, but it seems like when many Black people seem like they want to go to the continent of Africa, they say they want to go to Ghana. So I don't know if this is just speech and this is just talk. I think it's beyond that at this point, but I could be wrong.
Brother Bakari said Wani is starting to figure them out. Trigabi 262 Plus says there is no need to investigate. Look up Occupy Jabali. Ghanaians have been protesting for weeks because of the terrible economic conditions. He goes on to say, well, even Obadale Campbell had his criticisms with the year of return. It isn't to say it's all bad, and there are definitely opportunities, but when you take a deeper look, Ghana is suffering hard.
I am very nervous. Let me finish. I am very nervous when any individual tells me, as an individual person, there's no need to investigate. Let me fill you in on the information. No, brother. No, brother. You are stating me your opinion on how things are on the ground. Let me find out for myself, because I can think for myself too. You know what I mean? So what you may find, I may find something completely different. Our experiences may be vastly different. So let me do some encourage me to investigate and search out. And we in the black community, we too fast to say, well, don't research, don't do your due diligence. No, we need to be a due diligent kind of people. We need to be an investigatory kind of people because it's too much. We've been falling for what somebody say, a certain thing is. No, man, I have a brain in my head. I can investigate for myself and draw my own conclusions. I'll leave it there, Coco. Sorry for interrupting you.
It's all right. For time consideration, let's go on to Shoot the Breeze topic number 4. Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 says, if black people use white supremacist labels, why can't white people practice African spirituality? Let me double check if this was one of those with a time on it. No, this doesn't have a time limit on it. So this comes with a link that takes us to Twitter, actually. On Twitter, it's a post from Kamji, otherwise known as Kamjiverse. He said, why so? Black people take on ethno-linguistic labels that white supremacists gave us. Afro-Asiatic, Negro Congo, Nilo-Saharan, Khoisan. Isn't that a fair exchange? And he was replying to a tweet that looks like it's gone because the account was suspended. So my apologies there. I didn't realize this tweet wasn't there anymore. So we can't really have the full conversation like I'd want to. So I tell you what I'll do. On the fly here, I'll create Shoot the Breeze topic, another Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 to replace it. And we'll talk about this topic instead. Let me just set it up. So, Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 tonight. Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 tonight is African spirituality is not googlygook, scientific inference of African spiritual thought long before Europeans understood their ideas. This came with a link. I also think, this one goes to YouTube. And I believe this has some time stamps involved. So let me see what the timestamps are. Okay, 102, 8 minutes. Sorry about that. We're going to go to 102. We're going to go to 102 and start there.
So if you're looking at the view, you also look at so if a person dies, he or she hasn't really died. Then there's also proverbs such as that if a person dies, their tongue doesn't rot. Basically, this is an idea. As a matter of fact, on Saturday, we had an esteemed scholar named Mfundishi who came to the Lion House African Cultural Center. And he gave a very good, what I thought was a very good demonstration to help us understand this concept. Where, if, matter of fact, let's try it here. So I want you to say out loud, Mewaha. Mewaha. Very good. All right, so now I want you to close your eyes, close your mouth, and then think that to yourself.
I've done that.
Okay. So now, as you've done that, did you hear yourself say Mewaha?
Yes.
All right. Did you use your mouth to say Mewaha?
No.
Did you use your ears to hear yourself say Mewaha?
No.
All right. So this aspect of yourself, when you pass away, it didn't require any part of your body physically, not your mouth, not your head. So what exactly is that aspect of yourself? And when you pass on, would it require your body to continue being able to do what it does? So, I thought that was, a very good illustration to really get at the heart of what we're dealing with. Now, in modern day physics, there's this law of conservation of energy. And what it says basically is that energy is not created or destroyed in a closed system, it's only transformed. Now, this is supposed to be like a new scientific breakthrough discovery. Oh, wow. However, if you look at African societies throughout the continent, throughout the world, everything we do is based on that idea. Before we talked about Dikenga, and that's what I showed you before that I have here on my bag. So when you look at Dikenga, what you see here is that this is conception down at the bottom. This is birth. It's also the same as sunrise. This is at the high point. It's the same as noon. And then here we come down to sunset. And what this is also, like when a person passes on, then they come back to conception. And oftentimes I give the analogy of, okay, the human body is supposed to be, if you look at your blood and everything else, 60 to 70% water. So when a person passes on, you have to ask yourself, well, what happens to all of that water? Does it just, magically disappear? There's no, that water that was in you is no longer in the world. No, this is a closed system. So what you essentially have is that water will leave what was your body and then go into the earth. From the earth, it will evaporate and then go and become a cloud. From the cloud, it will rain and then go become part of the river. From the river, it will go and join the ocean. From the ocean, it will again evaporate and become a cloud. From there, so basically, this water that flowed through the veins of Imhotep, that flowed through the veins of Ptahhotep, that flowed through the veins of Queen Nzinga, Queen Amina, and we can go down the list of all of them, that exact same water is still there. So what aspect of them is no longer there? So now let's talk about the part that isn't water, the physical body. So if you look at what was their skin, if you look at what was their muscle, that when they are buried eventually, and we can talk about depending on what the casket is made out of, whether we're talking about 100 years, whether we're talking about 1,000 years, whether we're talking about 100,000 years, or whether we're talking about 1,000,000 years, or whether we're talking about 500 million years, eventually that is going to break down and go back and join the earth, which is what it came from initially. So when we're talking about this cycle, it's something that is readily observable. And then also there's this proverb, Bible say, you can say one thing doesn't spoil, another thing will not do well.
Because if you sow a seed, it has to rot or decay before it germinates and bears food.
Very good. And then even we can look at it on the front that we were discussing it before. So let's say you don't want to die, right? At least not right now.
Yeah. I think that is another thing that, for me, the treatment of this topic, reincarnation, is important because the fear of death is too much down on Africans. Majority of whom want to go to heaven but don't want to die.
Right.
The only requisite means to go to heaven. Anyway, that's on the sidebar. So,
but
now,
let me learn this point that I was trying to make. So now, if you do pass away, you can say, all right, I don't think that's a good thing for me, or especially if it's under bad circumstances, from your perspective. But when your body then starts to, go back to join the earth, you don't consider it a good thing, but the seed from a tree that falls on that same location considers it to be very good, because now it has nourishment in order to be able to become, a strong tree. So one thing, the death or the transition of one thing, the transformation of one thing, then turns into, something else. So again, this is the idea that everything that exists is just going to transform into another. Now, if you look at the ruler from ancient Kemet, Neb-Keperu-Ra, better known as Tutankhamen, that when you look at the name that he had, Neb-Keperu-Ra translates to the Lord of the transformations of the sun. Now, if you look at everything that you are made out of is the same essential elements that the sun is made out of. And if you look at creation stories from ancient Kemet, they say that Atum, the sun, that everything else came out of Atum. So Shu and Tefnut, Geb and Nut, human beings are made out of the tears of the sun. And, it's very profound because Atum is the same thing that they now say in science is the atom, right? So the atom as a basic building block from which everything else is derived. So you just join those atoms in different configurations in order to come out with a human being, in order to come out with a planet, in order to come out with a moon, in order to come out with a star, in order to come out with anything else. So again, these are deep, profound, quite scientific things. But now they'll say, "Oh, this is a brand new idea." They won't say that the creation story is actually, the source of all of these ideas.
So now, it looks the explanation you've given, which makes sense to me, though, looks a bit abstract.
So there's a second piece here. I gotta find the time. All right, I got it. There's a second piece here that we're gonna watch, and then we'll have a complete conversation about all of it.
So that's good. I think that's a good strategy to get our people right there. Doc, so a friend of mine who's also a doctor and a neurosurgeon, he explained a reincarnation just like you are saying. He says, for example, I'm given birth, I live, I die, I'm buried, I decay, my physical body decay, form part of the soil. Okay. Then somebody grows plantain there.
Right.
My body, because my body has decayed and mixed with the soil, it nourishes the plantain.
Exactly.
The plantain tap the DNA, my DNA, from the soil. Then my DNA become part of the plantain. Somebody eats it, get my DNA, and I live through that person. When that person gives birth, then I'm back. That looks more like physical scientific. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, this is exactly what we're talking about. So every aspect of the person, it just transforms into something else. So, when we're looking at what reincarnation is all about, there are these aspects, physical aspects that we can talk about, but then there are the aspects that aren't necessarily physical or tangible, just like when you said Mewaha, but I didn't hear you say it. What happens to that aspect that we can't see? What happens to the aspect that was saying the Mewaha and that heard Mewaha, but we couldn't see it? That just like every other material aspect that we're talking about, also those aspects of the human being that are immaterial would also transform into something else. So, I think the doctor is really talking about what we're dealing with. And then it also helps us to understand, and this was a point that I was just about to make, if you look at, people having reverence for nature, and people not wanting to be driven off of their ancestral lands is because everything that's around them is made out of their own ancestors. So if you're looking at the tree and you don't just chop down every tree in the forest and then you'll make a sacrifice to that tree before you cut it down to make a drum, why would you do that? Because you understand that that tree is made out of the same thing as your own great grandparents. You understand? Same thing that's made out of yourself. So these are the things that we're talking about when we're looking at ancestral, reverence. When we're talking about reverence for nature, why would you have reverence for nature? Because I know that my great 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 grandmother, who was on this exact same land, she is part of that tree that I'm chopping down. You understand that my great 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 grandfather is part of this.
This go to explain that the idea that when you pour libation, you pray to, like for example, a tree. You're going to cut a tree, and you pray and beg the tree before you cut it. It's got nothing got to do with paganism or idol worshiping and all of those things.
It's coming from a deep understanding of science, of the law of conservation of energy, law of conservation of mass, all of these things that, essentially energy is not created or destroyed, it's only transformed. So by the same token, the way that you would, propitiate the tree before doing something that you would need to do is the same way, or, an analogous way that you would have respect for another person, another human being. So if I want to, do something or whatever, I would ask you, oh, Kwabena, can I use this? It's yours. Can I use this? Oh, Kwabena, can I use that? It's yours. You understand?
And I think most often we don't do that because we think we human beings are in a way better than the trees, the forest, the herbs around us.
Yeah. Well, this is what happened is that even though we're still ethnically African, in many ways we've been made anti-African through miseducation, diseducation, and anti-education, through entertainment, through religion, through all these things. So physically, we still have the basic building blocks to be African. However, internally, this African self has been taken out, and then this alien white agent has been implanted. so to the things that we desire. And it's sort of like if you look at, and there's a scholar named Amos Wilson, I'll put it in the XLive um, group here, but he talks about similar things in terms of spirit possession and also in terms of multiple personality disorder. Now, looking at multiple personality disorder, he talks about there's this guy, Timmy, but that's only one of his personalities. Now, when this one drinks orange juice, he breaks out in hives. When that personality is gone, another one comes and drinks orange juice, absolutely nothing happens. So physiologically, there's a reaction based on the type of consciousness that's in this person. You'll have cases where this particular personality smokes. You understand? Now, what is it doing? It's saying based on this consciousness that's inside of me right now, I'm going to do something that I want, even if it harms the host body. So we know that the cigarettes, the smoke, and all this, it can bring about cancer. But it doesn't care. This consciousness that's inside of it, it wants to satiate itself. It wants what it wants, regardless of what happens. This is essentially the same thing that happens when we have this white consciousness in us. And the main way to get the white consciousness in us is through miseducation, diseducation, anti-education, through entertainment, through the movies that you watch and TV that you watch and all these things. And that sometimes is the most insidious because it's the one that seems like it's harmless. You're just laughing and you're just like, ha, ha, it's just whatever. But this is how they get the thoughts to say, oh, product placement is in this movie. Then you go out and you just say, I just want to drink Coke. And you don't understand why you just want to drink Coke, but it's because you saw it placed in a movie one time, at the climax of the movie that the hero did such and such and such and such. Also through religion, and that one is very obvious if you're praying to this imaginary white boy. So let me just land on this point and then we can continue. But when you have this white, agent that's been implanted in you, now, even if it destroys the host body, even if it destroys the environment in which the host body lives, it wants to fulfill its tastes and its desires. So it just says, oh, I want Pizza Hut. Now, what if this isn't good for your blood pressure? What if this gives you diabetes? You just say, I want KFC, I want this, I want that. So now, even though physiologically, biogenetically, you're African, every single thing inside of you craves that which is made by your enemies, whether it's the clothes that we wear, whether it's the language that we speak, whether it's the perm in the hair, whether it's the skin bleaching, that this is as a result of we have outer shells that are still African, but for many of us, entirely what is inside of us has been replaced. Or even when it's not entire, this is where you may have something that is inside of you that says, you know what, there's this disconnect. I'm fundamentally African. Then you start to reject this whiteness and you start to re-Africanize and de-whitenize. And that's against what your enemies want you to do. That's why they put all of these consciousness shaping tokens in your environment. So they'll just put this here, they'll just put that there. Now you just say, oh, I just want a phone made by Apple. Oh, I just want this made by this. I just want that made by that. Because they just put all of these things. This is why they spend billions and billions and billions on advertising in order to shape your consciousness and make you desire the things that fundamentally destroy you.
We're going to look at two things which is of reincarnation.
All right, we'll end there. Computer's lagging a little bit. Should be song number 4. African spirituality is not googlygook. The scientific inferences of African spiritual thought long before Europeans understood these ideas. I think it was a good discussion by Obadley Camden there. I'm wondering, did he or his father write a book on African science that spells out some of these concepts he's dealing with right here? And if not him, did anyone do a similar job? And do you know the names of the books? I'd like to check those out. Let me start with Azuliism this time. Azuliism, you're a bit of a spiritualist. What say you to this?
I mean, I always said that because when you look, if you're in a coma, you get in a coma, the body is still there. Hospitals have been able to keep the body going for years, feeding it, cleaning it. But when that driver is not there, meaning the driver of the vessel, where does it go? And again, in the voodoo spirituality, it tells you come from the water. So, like in Haiti, for example, if you're like a Ugan or Mumbo, like a very revered person, when you die, it says that you go back to the water. And there's a ceremony that has to be done to retrieve you from the water after you die to make it something I don't really know. But everything comes from you come from the waters, whether that's the waters of the ocean or that's the waters in your mother's belly. Is that, and I understand what the brother he said something like when we believe that when the forest had a god, the water had a god, people were less likely to destroy that. When you introduce Islam, and Christianity, it's easier for you to destroy the forest because there's no God living in there. It's not spiritual. It's nothing. God made you the top dog, and you could do everything because in the book it says God gave you dominion over animals. So it's easy for you to kill an animal, to go hunting and kill a lion, and then go to church the next day. It's easy for you to go to a supermarket and eat beef, kill a mouse, kill a squirrel, kill a raccoon. You could hit a raccoon while you're driving and just keep on going. It has no effect on you because they have bred that you see a raccoon or a dog or a lion as your equal. People don't. They chase the African. They chase the African. They chase the Native American, which I said to me is a black Native American, out of the forest. Now people don't want to walk barefoot no more. They want to walk with shoes. But if you talk to this brother, he's probably tell you need to walk barefoot because that's a connection from you to the earth. But when I talk like that, a lot of people on the chat come like, well, what did that do for black people? How is that going to benefit us? Because we are all looking at materialism. We don't. It's just like when they used to build the houses. Like I think last week you discussed one of those big houses that's getting Coco. Remember was it the Adobe house in Africa or something that was built out of sand? So back then they built their house with the ecosystem, not away from it. So this brother said something. I understand what he's saying, but black people are looking at this like, yo, how do you commodify this? How you turn this into money, materialism? Black people don't respect that because there's no materialism, because it's not giving you money, it's not giving you a Benz, a car, it's not making you the number one superpower. Maybe it can, but it's just we're not using it the right way. But at the end of the day, most of us don't really care about that until Sue from Indiana comes and say, "Hey, I'm doing a retreat to the Amazon," and then they tell you, "Oh, go to the Amazon and do this and that." Then it's different. But as a whole, I think we have lost that so-called spirituality. Most of us are not in tune with it. So I don't know, bro, because I don't. What does that mean? The googly. What does that mean? Googly gook. What does that mean? It's not googly gook. African spirituality is not googly gook. The scientific inference and a lot of the stuff that I
It's
think.
like saying mumbo jumbo.
Oh, okay. Because RBG said something. Science is the interpretation, not the instrument. Because science is just finding out how those things operate. Because they said the Dogon knew about some star before the scientific community knew about it, and they didn't have telescope, they didn't have satellites and stuff like that. So in a way, when we take, like this brother said, like if you see a dog in the street and you see God in the dog, you won't kick it. You won't just cut trees for the sake of it. You won't dirty the water for the sake of it. You won't overfish for the sake of it because it's you. But that's just another thing. But I think most of us are not spiritually minded. Most black of us are just looking at materialism. So that to them, what that brother is saying is just BS. So that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you for that, Razuli. So I of course, I don't think it's mumbo jumbo. What I will say though, especially in the condition that our folks are in right now, you got to you have to connect this understanding here. So basically in some part of this video, he was talking about the Newtonian concept of energy not being created nor destroyed. And he gave a rather extensive or lengthy-ish explanation, right? What I would want these guys or someone who's around these guys or what have you, or like the author that's on the screen right now that Trigger Happy put up, make that connection, man. Make those solid connections with these concepts, because the condition that we're in, where most of us went through, in America it's called the public school system or government school or whatever back home. Like, we've gotten this education about the Newtons of the world and whatnot, and what they've been able to do is show you how Newton's wording of something or his concept of something is reproducible. It might not be exact, but it's reproducible. And I think if we start talking about African spirituality, African science, I think we got to connect it so people can see that it's reproducible. I think that's the thing that might be a little bit lacking. We don't necessarily connect it in a practical way. I'll end there. I'll go to Real Black Gentleman. What say you, Real Black Gentleman?
I agree that, Black science is definitely misinterpreted. The one thing I want to say about, telescopes, right? What is a telescope? It's just a magnifying lens. Okay, here I'm gonna say this, right? So, So you mean to tell me that Black people didn't make a magnifying glass that, looked at the moon and made it bigger? So that, that Black people didn't like put a couple lenses together in a little tube and like looked at stuff? That right there, was just like boom. Like you mean to tell me they didn't understand a lens that could see a little further? That would be very useful in combat, a little piece of glass, even if it's like volcanic glass, you know what I'm saying? Like little things like interpreting distances and stuff like that. Look, I'm saying that Black people had telescopes. Now, here's my thing about the Dogon people in these telescopes, right? I'm trying to say, right? Look, back in the day, there was no like light pollution. There was no like street lights. Dark was dark. And if you had really good eyes, you could see everything at night. You know what I'm saying? Now Sirius is really far away. It's a star it's relatively far. Distance-wise is incredibly far, but it's one of the closer stars to Earth, right? So if you have incredible eyesight, plus you have, a little lens that could magnify the sky, yeah, I think you might be able to see. I'm saying it's well within the realm of possibility if you have extended equipment. If you have a lens and you have excellent eyesight, which I'm sure that, the Dogons are probably trained. I bet you got to train your eyes. You can start to see things. That's just like, I say that shouldn't be an incredulous statement. These Dogons was seeing, but maybe not just with their own eyes, with with equipment. Yeah, you can see all kinds of things with a telescope if you have really good eyesight. That's what I got to say. I know that Black people had all kinds of, and the thing is, like, you got to realize that a very fine lens is very delicate, and high technology breaks down very quickly. A lens is what, a piece of glass that's going to break down. Oh, well, where's the evidence? Well, the glass, crumbled and turned to sand. How there's a whole bunch of sand, in Africa where they probably made a glass lens for. So like, you got to understand how high technology breaks. A cell phone breaks down very quickly. What, in 100 years? Well, you know what I'm saying? You got to understand, these are the details about history that people like, little wires corrode and they fall away. You know what I'm saying? High delicate technology breaks up over very short time frames. Always keep that in mind when you look at history. You just see the rocks, but there's all kinds of glisten and gleam between that. You know what I'm saying? Black people had all day was definitely, We were shining. And we had science. We had replicatable science. The pyramids is classic reproducible science. Game, set, match. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So we know, but when you get invaded, you can't teach the babies the same things that your great grandbabies was teaching on a higher level because you running around scrambling and shit. Yeah, science and shit gets lost over, relatively short time frames. 50 years, those teachers and what you thought was y'all was doing it. But y'all got ran through somehow, you know what I'm saying? All that fine stuff was lost. That's what happened, right? You know what I'm saying? And so maybe even, you know what I'm saying? Even over that I know, black people had science. There's no way that black people did not have, again, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, when we talk about the Library of Alexandria, a lot of that science was snatched out of there. Some of it was burned, some of that stuff was looted out, you know what I'm saying? It's things that we don't. These white folks know things about us that we don't necessarily know about ourselves. We know it epigenetically, but we have to, you know what I'm saying, sketch it out and re-manifest that shit. But even at a higher level than it was when we even did it, we just had that. All we have to do is just add a couple of little layers of complexity to it. I mean, what we do is already complex. We just have to reinforce it. You know what I'm saying? It's not impossible. I mean, the African science is not. I see some things. And it's like, again, reproducible. If you don't know what you're paying attention to, you don't know. Divination. We see people with bones and stuff. That's divination. Look, there is a method to what seems to be madness. I can see here and think on the top of my head that's crazy, but no, there's an up and down to these things. I mean, some of these things. I mean. It's hard because again, because naturally things have degraded, but people do attempt to bring about order. So when you see people doing things that tries to bring about some kind of making sense of the universe, you can these things can be improved upon, but understand like the source of what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? People say voodoo's crazy. No, it's not. It's very methodical. I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all picked up on it, but RBG said some real shit inside that little response he had there. That idea of the sand and glass and stuff, that's kind of dope what he did there. I'll say that I think we did have reproducible science, and RBG, you cited the pyramids and stuff, but again, because of what's happened to us, we have to really, sankofa this thing. But more than that, we have to show the parallel, right? If you've been raised on this European science, for example, and you understand E equals MC squared, for you to switch and embrace the African, the similar African concept, the person teaching that has to extend that to a point where, okay, I can pick this up. I can see its parallel. I can use it to get the same outcomes like when I use this European science. I think when you just leave it at a story, right? I think when you just leave it at a story, but you don't connect it where someone could use that in the realm of mathematics or chemistry or what have you, I think that's where we fall off. Let's hear from Buana on this one next.
Yeah, so there were some profound things that were said tonight that I got a lot from. In terms of what Dr. Kambon was saying, how you reference the cycle of life and the cycle of nature in terms of spirituality and how you broke that down. I understand that, and I would never consider that to be gobbledygook, because when you have to explain things to people in a language in which they fundamentally understand. And I'm a student of nature. I'm a student of the natural world. And if you could break down and when you reference African spirituality and how he referenced that in terms of going to the soil and the soil is actually producing trees and then protecting the land itself because you understand that these are our ancestors. That's something that's understandable to me. Now we speak in the language of spirituality, and I am comfortable with that conversation because we take the spiritual, the African spirituality out of the supernatural and we put it into the natural world in which I can understand. When Azuli says some profound shit, and I don't know why Azuli talk crazy on that because he says some profound shit from time to time. He says that in Haiti, the Hugon goes, when he dies, he goes back to the water, either the water in the rivers or the what. And then he references it to when a woman is pregnant, the waters at a woman's stomach, you know, because during the gestation period, there's waters and that's it's almost like really saying that the spirit going back to God. Now, when we was having the conversation last week, or we were saying the black woman is God, that's another kind of conversation. But the fact that he referenced it in the natural world, I say, wow, I was blown away by the comment because I understand it on a natural level. And I think that if you are taking African spirituality out of the supernatural world, realm, or whatever, and explaining it in the natural world and how it applies, the applicability of it, I could understand it. I could flow with you. We could go, we could hang. But when you start creating fun, when you start creating supernatural stories, that's when you lose me. And I think that if the spirituality, African spirituality, is explained on a natural kind of level, I think that you would get the air of more brothers who don't necessarily go off into the supernatural world. You know what I mean? I think that if you could put it back into the natural world, I think the brothers would be more inclined to walk along with that. I think so. But that's just my opinion. I just wanted to reference some of the things that I heard that really resonated, you know, when it was spoken of. Something was really mentioned and something was Doc mentioned. But I'll stop there.
Appreciate that, Buana. Trigger Happy and Bakari have been having a little discussion back and forth about the utility of spirituality versus the reality. You guys could check out those comments. You can check out those comments during the playback.
Can I say something real quick?
Trigger says this presentation here. Hold on a second. This presentation here, my computer's acting up for some reason. This presentation here is only a brief taste. There are many scientists and whatnot that really gets deeper into this concept. We need to simply institutionalize such pedagogy. He says this is also why our languages are important, because that's how you will make the connections when it comes to teaching. Lastly, he says, I think it's more like our spiritual practices have been misframed to be supernatural, and that it's always been highly scientific to deal with how to live life. That's why I mentioned E.B. Tyler a lot. All right, Zuli wanted to say something quickly. Go ahead.
What I want to say is that two things real quick. The supernatural can't be understood because you haven't created the science enough to catch up to it. Well, once you created the science to catch up with it, then you're going to say, oh, science proved it that it was right. This somebody in the chat said, oh, until the supernatural does something for black people. It's funny how some people be going all emotional to defend physical, material HBCUs, but shit on black spirituality. It's funny how the same people that talk about, oh, yeah, I never say good things about black people, but quick to dismiss African spirituality. So I see it. So the same way you accuse certain people, you go at people for saying, oh, you never say anything good about black people. But some people right now are disrespecting or saying African spirituality is people who practice African spirituality are just too afraid to do physical things. Okay, all right, that's what I have to say.
This man chose violence tonight, I see, man. Poking the bear. With that said,
he chose violence.
yeah, he chose violence tonight. With that said, Black Steel, you heard everything everyone else had to say. What say you to all of it?
So it doesn't surprise me that Africans have. I mean, African people were the first. We're the origins of humanity. I think that we've always been on the cutting edge of understanding the universe around us, and also to our interpretation of the world around us. So one thing that the way African people interpret the universe is that we consider ourselves to be a part of nature, right? So we all have our place within the world. Whereas with the European, they conceptualize themselves to be up and apart, above nature, which is why they always talk about having dominion over all living things, to conquer the earth and to subdue it. You know, it says in the book of Genesis. But whereas with African people, there's no need to conquer or subdue because we are already a part of it. And I think this distinction really shows how we value life on this planet and how we value each other. You know, with the European, is everything is conquest to conquest to conquest, where we don't really see the world like that. And it's interesting because when in school, we talk about the different things the Greeks came up with as far as like mathematics, everything else like that. That came from Africa. The whole Pythagorean theorem. Pythagoras got his shit from Kemet. So, we've always been at the forefront of science and technology and things like that. This is no surprise to me. And plus also the whole idea that when you break down, since matter can neither be created nor destroyed. So when you pass on, your body is just transformed to another form of energy. That's that's the law of thermodynamics. But of course, African people came up with that. They're not going to give us any credit. No, we don't need them to acknowledge our credit because we understand the implications of that. So I'll leave it there. And this is a very good topic. All right, thank you.
Let's welcome in Brother Bakari this week. Brother Bakari, how are you?
What's going on? I'm good. What's going
good.
on, Bawano? Chat, everybody on the panel. Hey, look, can y'all hear me?
Hey, big bro.
Yes, sir.
Well, look, first of all, I said nothing negative about nobody. But my point about spirituality still stands. Because you can stand up here, you can get on YouTube and you'll speak with bass in your voice. I heard you earlier say the black woman sound like a man, tell black folks they ain't ish. But then when we go to talking about it, you ain't gonna fight nothing. And I'm gonna still stand what I said. Y'all don't, that spirituality, and I ain't telling nobody because I also said in the chat that if that spirituality works for you, I'm not knocking it. Let it work for you. But I don't deal with those spiritual gurus because I haven't seen the spiritual manifest anything in the physical. Is this spirituality gonna get this knee off your neck? Y'all was just sitting up here talking about reparations. Is this spirituality gonna help you get reparations? Is this spirituality gonna build a military? And yes, what I said, I mean that I think black people stay out in the clouds. A lot of black people stay out in the clouds and go to worrying about something that they can't see, touch, hear, smell, nothing to keep them, because what is going on and what's happening to us, they can't deal with it. So let's stay focused on this. If we just focus on this, we'll be okay. But that spirituality, and I'm talking about, when is black people gonna say, let's do something in the physical so we can fight? Let's do something in the physical. Let's do something in the physical so we can take care of ourselves. But running around, this is just my personal opinion. This spirituality stuff, a lot of time, the way a lot of these people use it and what they talking about they're doing, these spiritual gurus, and you hear this stuff, they ain't no different than Christians. They're no different. They're using it, a lot of them. I don't know about this guy. But a lot of them, they're just using this stuff to hustle people. But because they put Africa in front of it, everybody just, oh, it's African spirituality. You talking bad about African spirituality. I said spiritual. I didn't say anything about Africa. I said saying this spiritual stuff is what I said in these spiritual gurus. That's what I said. And my point stands, because when you show me what his spirit has made you fight. Show me what made you stand up for something in the physical. I know people who wouldn't worry about that, who stood up for stuff in the physical. It's just me personally. And that's all I'm talking about. But we'll hold on to that, and it's going to be so close to us. I'm not saying you're wrong, because it might be right for you. But I was speaking my opinion about how I see it, and I wouldn't tell you don't do it if it works for you. I was speaking for me, and I didn't say anything negative. But I have seen these spiritual gurus, and it's a lot of them on YouTube. It's a lot of them on YouTube that I know is beating people out of money. I got a friend right now. I can't convince her to stop listening to some of this stuff that she's saying, because it does not make sense. Stop listening to them people giving these people your money. They're scamming you, but they're so spiritual. I don't give a shit. They're so rich off your money. Stop giving them people. Stop going to these folks. And that's what I said, these spiritual gurus. So I'm gonna come up here and correct you when you try to come at me, Azuli. Because see, the thing about it is, I ain't scared to say your name. And yes, and I'm gonna still stand up for HBCUs and black businesses, and I'm gonna still say the black woman is God. Ain't that something? When Bawana said that, and he said that's another conversation. Your mama gave birth to you, fed you, did all that. But it's a problem if you say the black woman is God. But for some spirit, you don't know what the hell it is. So now somebody else got to explain it to you. That is okay. And I don't even really be meaning it, but I know how I gonna get y'all because I take up for a black woman. But we can't give a black woman no props. The woman that raised you, the woman that fed you, helped you learn to walk, taught you to talk, speak, clothe you, bathe you, wipe your stinking ass, got the boogers out your nose. But you got a problem if I say the black woman is God. But this spiritual stuff, you have to have a perfect understanding. That shit is
Brother
crazy
Bakari,
to me.
Brother Bakari, I wanted to ask you, please for me, give me your working definition when you say God, what that means. Give me a working definition. What you mean when you say God?
Oh, when I say God, I'm talking about people here on earth. I say the black man and black woman because that's them the people I deal with and who I care about. Do I think there's something bigger than me? Do I believe there's a creator? There's things I don't understand, and I don't try to understand. Do I believe in miracles? Yes, but when I say God, I'm just talking about us.
Nothing supernatural or no perfect kind of
No,
spirit. Okay.
No.
I just need to understand it. I just need a definition. All right.
Nothing supernatural. God is the physical.
God cannot be the physical, because when people use the word God, that's something spiritual. How are you going to talk about that spirituality if it works for you? It works for you. When the next breath called the God, woman, God. The term God is a spiritual thing. Nobody could see a God. If you're a human, you're not God.
To you. It's a spiritual thing to you.
You're making shit up right now, man. You're making shit up right now. 100 years from now, a God is not the word God is not relegated to a human.
It's a spiritual thing. Okay,
the word God is not relegated to a human, bro. Come on, let's be honest.
Okay, tell me where you get it from. Tell me where you get it from where it's not relegated to a human.
What do you mean?
Tell me where you get it from.
And everywhere.
Who taught you that?
I get it from my own people. African people don't believe humans are God.
Okay, God, African people, if you talk to them and they're honest, they'll also tell you they didn't even use the word God. I got friends right now.
Okay, let's say they didn't use the word God, but they use the word that said creator. Okay, when you say God, do you believe, if you say the black woman is God, can she create, can she in her mind, or whatever the God mean, does she have supernatural powers when you say she's God?
I've already answered that question. I already said it ain't nothing. I've already said there's nothing
what you using it for?
to me.
So what you using that term for? That's a fake term. Stop using that term. You're not God, bro.
Says who? Says who is fake? See, you holding on to this so-called spirituality.
That shit sounds dumb. They just
and you also got and you also got some religious beliefs in you, because I done heard you quote the Nation of Islam. So you don't see how someone can say God is in the physical. But even if you go back to your religious books, because you quote the Nation of Islam, I've heard you do that. Even if you go back to any of these religious books, your religious books tell you, I have said ye are gods, but you will die like men. You can't tell me how I'm supposed to. You can't tell me how I'm supposed to see something. Who wrote that rule? How you gonna tell me that I have to see God as something spooky I can't see, I can't touch, I can't smell, I can't hear? Who said that?
But no, you don't have to. But even when Boana asks you your definition of God, you say God is a human. It's just a regular nigga.
Yes.
So if
No,
that's such a regular person, why are you using
see,
that term?
Once again, you misquoted me, because I didn't call nobody the N-word. See, now you misquoted me.
Okay. Now you're using semantics. You never said that. You said
no,
okay,
no, I'm not.
When you use the word God,
no, I'm not, because I don't call nobody the N-word. So I hear it used so many different ways. So I don't call nobody that. I don't know if it's a term of endearment or if you ready to go kill an N-word. I have no idea. I don't use the word. So
okay, what you're saying is that when Boana asked you, you said that the word, when you use the word God, it doesn't mean anything power, spirituality, doesn't mean that you could create shit with your own mind. It just means a regular human, right?
Watch this. Me.
So why do you
and
use
my
the word
wife?
God?
What?
If you don't
Me
believe in
and
the
my
term
wife,
God,
without
if you don't,
me and my wife in our mind created our kids. Then we got together in the physical and actually created them. But in our mind, we had already discussed having children. So we created it in our head first. So we had already created them. Then we got in the physical and did what it take to make them.
No, brother, you didn't create them. You created the fucking body. You didn't create the person that's driving the body. That's what you created.
Okay.
You created
Who
the
created?
body. You created the body. That's what you created. Because
What the hell are you
I
talking
just said
about?
to you, if you get into a coma, if somebody gets into a coma, men have the ability to keep the body going. But the thing that drives the body is not there. So you and your wife got together and created the body. But how did whoever your daughter or your son is get into that body?
Me and my wife got together and did it.
Okay, all right, bro, you got it.
That's how I get there. If you don't know how kids are made, how old are you? If you don't know how children are created, how old are you? And I also said, when I say God, I know there's something bigger than me. I also said I believe in miracles. There's things that I can't explain. I also said that. But I said I think we look out in the clouds too much. I didn't even say don't do it. I say I think we do it too much is what I said. That's all I said. I think we do it too much. We focus on that and it takes us away from reality.
All right, Bakari. All right, Bakari. We get it. I will say this though. I find I have a problem with the spiritualists, the religious, when pragmatic people come along and say, that just, I have a criticism of this stuff because how come it hasn't benefited us, being that we're the most religious people? We're the ones who practice African spirituality the most, right? And how come our gods or deities, or however you want to frame it, how come they haven't come to some rescue? Why is it our enemy's God is beating ours? To go back to that Wilder fight with the Gypsy King, right? How come that happens? And I have a problem when those who adhere to the spiritual, who connect with the spiritual, I have a problem when you bring that up and they get kind of offended. They get kind of offended. I think that's a valid question to ask. Where is this God? Trigger says we don't practice it in mass. No, but within that bucket called African spirituality, the most people in that is black folks. The most of people in that is black folks. White folks ain't practicing it. And again, so I'm saying, well, if it's most of y'all people practicing the shit, I don't think there's a problem in asking, well, what has this God, or deity, or spirit, or what have you, what have they really done for its adherents? I have a problem when some folks start to argue that stuff. It's a valid question. Does anyone? Did I get to everyone? I don't think I got to Black Steel on this one yet, right?
No, you got to me. We can't get to number five today. So I guess it's a wrap. No, you got to me. I said all I wanted to say on it.
All right. Does anyone have any last words on this prompt?
I have last words. I have last words.
All right.
I would like. Okay, this is gonna be quick. What I am hearing from both of the brothers is something that it seems to be a contrast, but it's still going in the same direction. And here's what I mean by that. And I could be very quick. When Azuli said that the Ugon, when he dies, his spirit goes back to the waters. And then when he say waters, I don't know, he connected to the ocean, and then he says the waters of the womb of the woman, right? He make that connection there, right? So if the spirit, usually in the Christian parlance, they say the spirit go back to God. So if it going back to the waters of the womb of the woman, then I see a connection there when Brother Bakari say the black woman is freaking God, you know. However, I understand the distinct nuances. I would like next week maybe because I see the connection, and maybe y'all can show me where the disconnect is. But I see that there's a distinct connection there when one saying one thing and one saying another thing, and maybe y'all talking a different part like positions. But I do see a connection. But I'll leave it there for now. You know, it's been a very good discussion, brothers. I appreciate you all for coming out and explaining some things to me that it wasn't very clear to me. And I would just leave it there. Thank you, Koku. Thanks.
All right. Does anyone else have any last thoughts on this prompt? All right, then. That's the show tonight. We don't have time to go to another prompt. So I want to thank everyone who was here. Bakari just jumped off. I was just going to go to Bakari and see what you want to shout out this week. Azuli, what do you want to shout out this week?
Shout out to the show. So it's good conversation. That's it.
Real Black Gentleman, what do you want to shout out this week?
No, again, just want to shout out the discussion. I'm glad we brought up some topics about the Caribbean. I think that it's anything to uplift and improve our people. You know what I'm saying? Worldwide. Again, reading about the Kenyans moving in, trying to do something. I mean, it's unorthodox. Hopefully, something good comes out of it. If not, I think we'll definitely see like the limits of maybe how Black people can do things. But I mean, I'm not going to be mad at the African peoples, again, knock on wood, that everything, has some relatively measurable improvement by their presence. I understand, I just want to say that was my shout out. I want people to, get what rightfully ours in Sankofa.
Thank you for that, RBG. Black Steel, what would you like to shout out this week?
Good show tonight, everybody. Free Haiti, free Palestine. I know I'm very happy of those events that are taking place today in Palestine. I love to see the colonizers on the run. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and I hope everybody have a good night.
Thank you, Black Steel, for coming through. That leaves us with Buana. Buana, what say you? What do you want to shout out this week?
Shout out the brothers for coming on tonight and having a spirited discussion. No love lost. Like I say, sometimes we disagree, and we disagree actively, but that don't necessarily mean there's nothing personal. Nothing personal is lost. We just had we need to keep each other very sharp mentally because we live in the real world where we have real world problems. So it's very good for us to come together to keep each other mentally sharp and to hold each other to task for some of the ideas that we may hold that may be ridiculous and spurious. So, I say shout out to the brothers for coming on and just having a conversation, but I'll just leave it there.
All right, appreciate all of you, man. You guys check out the Hash Rally podcast, Brother Bakari's podcast. Thanks to Brother Bakari for coming up. Check out Oni in the morning, the Pro-Black Perspective. Check us all out. You know me, I'll be back with you guys next week, Saturday. Check out the Shoot the Breeze clip show. Like I said, sometimes when you listen to these clips, as I get to, the clips, the conversations really hit a little different. So you guys check it out. Shout out to Trigger Happy 262 who said, good show. Shout out to all you guys who's in the chat tonight. Trigger Happy 262, Keta, Yana B, Jose, KW Don 7, Anthony McPhail, The4Kast, Brother Bakari, Joe, Daily Affirmations by Pauline, The Pro-Black Perspective. Shout out to all of you tonight who was here. I'll see you guys next week. You guys be good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.